Chapter 577. Qiao San looked at Zhuge Tian in surprise. Zhuge Tian glared at him. Why? You think something's wrong? Young lord, you finally thought it through. I've been waiting for this day. Qiao San said excitedly. Zhuge Tian said, There's no rush. Take your time. What's mine will always be mine. That's right. Qiao San nodded and smiled. Young lord, you're the young lord of Crouching Bull Mountain. You're the future master. How can you let someone else be in charge? Who's in charge now? Morong Chun? Zhuge Tian asked. Sigh. It's Elder Morong. Qiao San sighed. What a wild ambition. Zhuge Tian laughed coldly. He can't wait for my father to go into isolation and not come out, or to go berserk, right? Qiao San looked around and whispered, Young lord, it's better if you don't say these things. If Elder Morong hears you, he'll definitely cause trouble. Why would I cause trouble? Zhuge Tian said coldly. Qiao San said helplessly, I think Elder Morong already knows about us. It's better if we don't provoke him. Zhuge Tian squinted his eyes and asked, He knows? Young lord, think about it. He has eyes everywhere in the sect. How can he not know? We can't hide it. Qiao San whispered. Zhuge Tian laughed coldly. Morong Chun. He was furious. Morong Chun had watched Zhuge Tian harm innocent girls just to get Zhuge Tian off the stage. How despicable. He deserved to die. Zhuge Tian was Chu Li in disguise. He asked all the questions just to prepare for this day. The 5th level of the heavenly demonic power allowed him to transform into another person. His appearance, tone, and voice were all the same. Coupled with his omniscient mirror, his plan was flawless. Since he had the heavenly demonic power and the omniscient mirror, he suddenly had an inexplicable thought. Crouching Bull Mountain was a first-rate sect in the martial arts world. It had 2,000 years of history. If he could become the master of Crouching Bull Mountain, Qiao San said, Elder Morong is very powerful. Young lord, you should be careful. Hiding your strength and biding your time is a good way to protect yourself. However, if this goes on, Elder Morong will get his way sooner or later. By then, it'll be too late. Chu Li nodded slowly. Qiao San said, Hill Master's closed-door cultivation is getting longer and longer. Initially, I thought that once you came out, Elder Morong would no longer be a threat. However, Hill Master is still in closed-door cultivation. If this goes on, I'm afraid that Elder Morong will start having thoughts that he shouldn't. Chu Li smiled and said lazily, Could it be that he wants to usurp the throne? It's not impossible, Qiao San said in a low voice. If the Hill Master were to go berserk, who would support the young lord? Chu Li furrowed his eyebrows. He has something on me now. Even if there are people who support me, once he shows them, they will probably not support me anymore. Sigh. Qiao San looked at him helplessly. He knew that the young master was depressed and could only vent his frustrations through women. No matter how he tried to persuade him, it was useless. Fortunately, those women were like ants to him. If they died, then so be it. However, if Elder Morong had something on him, it would be a matter of life and death. Chu Li said, It looks like I'll have to continue pretending to be dead for now. Qiao San quickly said, Young lord, don't be discouraged. We can't do it openly, but we can do it secretly. Chu Li nodded. I can't just sit and wait. Qiao San said, There are still many people in the sect who are loyal to the Hill Master. Elder Morong can't do whatever he wants. Has anything big happened in the sect recently? Chu Li asked. The sect. Qiao San thought for a while and shook his head. It doesn't seem to be anything big. It's peaceful and everyone is busy cultivating. Chu Li muttered, Morong Chun's child. What about Morong Liang? Through the omniscient mirror, Chu Li was able to see Qiao San's mind. He knew Morong Liang's name and appearance. Qiao San said, Morong Liang has been pursuing Elder Xia's daughter, Miss Xiaowei. What a pity! Chu Li frowned. Xia Wei. Elder Xia's daughter is a great beauty. Xiao San looked at him carefully. Chu Li saw the situation in his mind and said, She's beautiful, but she's not suitable for me. Don't worry. Yes. Xiao San nodded helplessly. Let's leave it at that for now. We'll think about it later. Chu Li waved his hand. Let's find a courtyard first. I don't want to stay here. Yes. There are many courtyards on the mountain. Let's find one first. I'll get someone to build another one. It won't take a few days. Xiao San said. Chu Li nodded. The two of them left the courtyard and went from the back of the mountain to the mountainside. They walked towards a courtyard not far away. There were many empty courtyards there. He could stay there for a few days. They walked on the bluestone path. There were many flowers on both sides. The flowers were blooming and competing with each other. It was as if they were in a sea of flowers. Hey, if it isn't the young lord. 3 young men walked towards them. They were all dressed in green and looked handsome. They were completely different from Zhuge Tian's feminine handsomeness. They were full of masculinity and their voices were especially loud. The young man in front was handsome. He looked at Chu Li with disdain. Young lord, why do you have time to come to the front of the mountain? Murong Liang, get lost, Chu Li said lazily and continued walking forward. Xiao San was shocked. He looked at Chu Li approaching him anxiously. Hey young lord, you talk big. Murong Liang laughed. Do I have to move aside and make way for you when we meet? It's good that you know your place, Chu Li said. Murong Liang shook his head. It's easy to make way, as long as you can make me move aside. He stood firmly in the middle of the bluestone path and scoffed. I heard that you've been training hard and mastered some amazing martial arts. I'd like to learn a thing or two from you. You're no match for me, Chu Li said. He glanced at the 2 young men standing behind Murong Liang. One of them had a round face and a big head. He was extremely ugly. The other one had a plain face and a simple and honest face. Both of them looked the same, but they were extraordinarily handsome. Murong Liang smiled. You talk big. Martial arts can only be learned through sparring, not through words. Young lord, let us see your martial arts. Chu Li approached him and suddenly pressed his palm down. Bang! Murong Liang smiled and struck his palm. The 2 palms collided. Bang! Murong Liang was sent flying and knocked into 2 of his companions. The 3 of them fell into the flowering shrubs at the side, crushing them. Chu Li looked at the 3 of them in disdain and shook his head. How dare you show off with this level of martial arts? You're too short-sighted. He walked away with his hands behind his back and ignored the 3 of them. The 3 of them fell into the flowering shrubs and were bleeding from the thorns. They glared at Chu Li fiercely. Xiao San looked at the 3 of them worriedly and quickly followed. He whispered, Young lord, they'll take revenge. Chu Li laughed. Come on then. Let them have a taste of my power. Sigh. Won't this expose your martial arts? Xiao San asked worriedly. Chu Li said, It's time to expose it. Chapter 578. P.S. The most important thing on Monday is the recommendation vote. Please vote for me, everyone. Thank you very much. Murong Liang's face turned pale. He stared at Chu Li's back without saying a word. The ugly, round-faced young man whispered, Murong, is this guy really that powerful? Could it be that you were careless? Another young man said. Murong Liang glared at them. Do you think I didn't want to teach him a lesson? At that time, he had already decided to succeed in one strike and teach Zhuge Tian a lesson so that he would not be able to back down. Being able to step on the young lord would bring him endless benefit. He had been waiting for such an opportunity and did not expect it to finally happen. He must not fail and must seize it. He tried his best. It did not matter even if he died. The hill master was already in isolated cultivation anyway. He could just escape and help his father get rid of the obstacle. He imagined that the news would spread throughout the crouching bull mountain and that he had defeated the young lord. By then, everyone would know that the hill master had no successor and that the young lord was useless and not as good as him. However, reality made all his beautiful thoughts and fantasies go up in smoke. He did not expect that when they fought, he could not defend against the surging power. It was like a child meeting an adult. Sigh. I didn't expect this. The two shook their heads. Murong, if we were to fight again, would you be able to defeat him? Zhou Heng asked. Yes, let's fight again, Chu Daji said. Murong Liang glared at them without saying a word. The two of them had played with him since they were young. They knew that he was not confident just by looking at his expression. Let's fight again, Chu Daji said. I don't believe that this guy's martial arts is that good. In their minds, the young Lord Zhuge Tian was just a cowardly fellow. He was a yes-man and did not have the spirit of a real man at all. They had always looked down on him and never expected him to have mastered such powerful martial arts. Murong Liang scoffed. If you want to fight, do it yourself. Why don't the three of us fight together? Zhou Heng said. His words were completely different from his honest appearance. He said in a low voice, Let's find a time when it's dark and ambush him. We'll beat him up and teach him a lesson. Good idea. Chu Daji clapped. He suddenly grinned. His hand was full of thorns. It was painful to pat him. Murong Liang remained silent. The two of them knew at a glance that he had agreed to it, but he was pretending to be reserved. Hence, they started laughing and felt that it was very exciting. They imagined how they would push Zhuge Tian down to the ground and beat him up until his face was so swollen that he would not be able to see anyone. At this moment, a young lady walked over. She was dressed in a light pink gown. She had big bright eyes and exquisite facial features. She was extremely beautiful. What are you three doing there? She asked curiously. The three of them immediately blushed, unable to utter a single word. Murong Liang said, Junior Sister Xia, we are looking for something. Find something to squash such a large patch of flowers? You guys are really cruel. The beautiful young woman quickly waved her hand. Come out quickly. Junior Sister Xia, have you finished practicing? Murong Liang leaped out of the cluster of flowers lightly. If there were not so many thorns on his body, he would look even more charming. Unfortunately, his buttocks and back were full of thorns, which made him look comical. Xia Wei pursed her lips and chuckled. Look at your sorry state. Were you sent flying by someone? How could we be beaten up by others? The three of them shook their heads. Xia Wei said, I saw it all. It was Zhuge Tian. The three of them blushed again and cursed in their hearts. You clearly knew, yet you still stared at me with your big innocent eyes and asked as if you really didn't know. Who would have thought that it was a trap? They obediently fell into it. What a troublesome woman. They looked at Murong Liang sympathetically. Murong Liang's expression did not change. I was too careless. I didn't expect him to be so calculative. He even launched a sneak attack. Xia Wei burst into laughter. You are really shameless. You were clearly no match for him, yet you said that he launched a sneak attack. I don't believe that you didn't want to launch a sneak attack. In the end, you still couldn't defeat him. Haha. She knew Murong Liang's habits very well. Although he looked like an honorable person, he was full of evil tricks. He would definitely launch a sneak attack to embarrass Zhuge Tian. However, she did not expect Zhuge Tian to have the same thoughts and was even more powerful than him. Junior Sister Xia, whose side are you on? Murong Liang said with a straight face. Look at his weird expression. He doesn't have any manly spirit at all. He's an embarrassment to us men. It's not his fault that he looks like that, Xia Wei said in a fair manner. Looks don't matter. What matters is his bearing. Murong Liang scoffed. Look at him. How can he be a hill master? He's an embarrassment to the crouching bull mountain. Being a hill master depends on one's ability, not his appearance. Xia Wei smiled. Miss Xia, why are you always on his side? Have you fallen for him? Chu Daji said unhappily. Yes, I've fallen for him. Xia Wei smiled. His martial arts is great and he's handsome too. He's so likable. You! Murong Liang's expression darkened. Xia Wei smiled. Murong, you've lost to him. Let's go. She waved her hand as she spoke and walked away. Her graceful body was light and alluring. Murong Liang's expression darkened as he stared at her back. Murong, junior sister Xia is purposely trying to piss you off. Zhou Heng smiled. Looks like she's not happy that you couldn't defeat Zhuge Tian. Murong Liang gritted his teeth. We must teach him a lesson. Yes, teach him a lesson. Chu Daji shouted. Lanterns were lit and the night was hazy. Suddenly, a shrill scream was heard from outside. Chu Li was practicing the cloud slashing sword technique in the courtyard. The technique was extremely fast and required the heart technique to circulate quickly. Otherwise, it would delay the connection of the technique. He had to learn it bit by bit. When he heard the scream, he used the omniscient mirror to observe. He saw 3 people lying behind a tree, sneakily looking at him. Chu Li shook his head. These people were still young and had not left the mountain to train. They were too naive to stay in the mountain. However, naivety was naivety. They would still be ruthless when they needed to be. This was their nature. Zhou Heng and Chu Daji wanted to teach him a lesson, but Murong Liang wanted to kill him. He was filled with murderous intent and had been looking for an opportunity. Once the opportunity presented itself, he would not hold back. Chu Li held his sword and opened the door. He looked around and pretended to be curious. Woo! Another strange scream was heard. Chu Li pretended not to know and walked into the forest again. Murong Liang had already picked up a giant rock and climbed up the tree. Whoosh! A giant rock fell from the sky. Chu Li scoffed and raised his sword. The giant rock, which was about the height of a man, stopped falling and flew away. Bang! The rock crashed into a pine tree that was as thick as a man's arms. The 2 people behind the tree were shocked. After Murong Liang threw the rock, he flew down and was about to launch a series of attacks. When he was in the air, he saw Chu Li lift the giant rock with his sword. Chu Li did not panic like he had expected. Murong Liang was shocked. He did not have the ability to lift a giant rock with his sword. Chu Li's strength was too terrifying. Let's go together, he shouted in a deep voice. He had already landed on top of Chu Li. Chu Li's sword flashed and the tip of the sword was right in front of Murong Liang's throat. Chapter 579. Murong Liang screamed. He unsheathed his sword and pointed it at the tip of Chu Li's sword. The other 2 pounced on him. One used his fists while the other used his palms. They were both innate masters. Murong Liang was also an innate master. Chu Li allowed them to hit him. Bang! Bang! The 2 of them flew out. The tip of Murong Liang's sword collided with Chu Li's and flew out of his hand. Chu Li moved his sword down and stabbed Murong Liang's dantian. Ugh! Murong Liang's eyes widened in disbelief. His body froze. Chu Li raised his sword. It was as if Murong Liang had strung himself to the sword. Chu Li lifted him up lightly and shook the sword. Murong Liang's stomach was bleeding and he fell to the ground. Murong! The 2 of them screamed. They did not expect Chu Li to do such a thing. The sword pierced through his stomach and he was almost dead. Chu Li said, I won't die. I'll just cripple my martial arts. I'll just take it back and apply some medicine. He turned and left. If Murong Liang wanted to kill him, Chu Li would not hold back. It was already kind of him to only cripple his martial arts. Moreover, he wanted to simplify things. He wanted to lure Murong Chun out and defeat him right away. Then, everything would be simple. Zhuge Tian! Zhou Heng shouted. Chu Daji stared at him. The 2 of them were helping Murong Liang up. They were panicking and did not know what to do. Chu Li turned to look at them and shook his head. Murong Liang, do you dare say that you don't want to kill me? Murong Liang's face was pale. He stared at him with hatred. Zhuge Tian, just you wait, Chu Li said, a sneak attack in the middle of the night. If I didn't dodge that rock, I would have been smashed into meat paste. I'd like to ask you what grudge you have against me. Zhuge Tian, we were just messing around, Zhou Heng said. Chu Li laughed. You were messing around, Chu Daji was messing around too, but Murong Liang was not. The two of them shook their heads. Don't slander us. Chu Li sighed and smiled. A real man dares to take responsibility for his actions. Murong Liang, say something. That's right. I wanted to kill you. Murong Liang gritted his teeth. Chu Li said, I didn't offend you, did I? Why do you want to kill me? Because you're a disgrace to Crouching Bull Mountain. You're not fit to be the young lord of Crouching Bull Mountain. Murong Liang gritted his teeth. Chu Li said, You think I'm not worthy because you're worthy to be the young lord of Crouching Bull Mountain, right? Not bad. Murong Liang scoffed. Chu Li shook his head and sighed. How naive. Your martial arts can be considered crippled. You should start from scratch. Zhuge Tian, I will never forgive you. Murong Liang gritted his teeth. Chu Li smiled. You won't forgive me? Are you looking for your father? My father will cripple your martial arts as well. Murong Liang gritted his teeth. He'll break your limbs and turn you into a cripple. Chu Li could not help but laugh. Then let's see if your father can do it. I heard that Elder Murong is very powerful. I want to see for myself. Just you wait. Murong Liang gritted his teeth. Chu Li turned around and walked back. He closed the door and returned to the courtyard. Zhou Heng and Chu Daji looked at each other. They looked at Murong Liang, who was still bleeding, and quickly carried him away. The two of them carried Murong Liang to a small courtyard and barged in. They shouted, Elder Murong, Elder Murong! A middle-aged man was slowly practicing his fist technique in the courtyard. The flower petals around him danced, spun, and undulated with the force of his fist. He was thin and slender. His arms and legs were so thin that they seemed like they could be broken with a snap. His eyes were bright as if he could see through a person's heart. He walked forward and glanced at Murong Liang. He pressed a few fingers to stop the bleeding and checked his meridians. He shook his head. His dantian is crippled. His martial arts is gone. Murong Liang quickly asked, Father, can he be cured? I can't. Murong Chun shook his head. His dantian is completely destroyed. This is a master. Who did you offend? Zhou Heng said, Elder Murong, it's the young lord. The young lord, Zhuge Tian? Murong Chun turned to look at him. Zhou Heng nodded. We wanted to ambush him and beat him up. We didn't expect his martial arts to be so powerful. He pierced Murong Liang's dantian with just one strike. We couldn't save him in time. The young lord has such a high cultivation level. Murong Chun frowned. Zhou Heng said, We hit him with our palm. He didn't even try to dodge and sent us flying. Sigh. Murong Chun shook his head and looked at Murong Liang. He acted recklessly without knowing anything. Consider this a lesson for him. Father, my martial arts. Murong Liang shouted unwillingly. What about my martial arts? Just start from the beginning. Murong Chun said, What's there to be surprised about? Rest for a month. When the injury to your dantian has healed, you can start cultivating again. This time, you have to focus on cultivating. Don't be rash. Father, aren't you going to avenge me? Murong Liang shouted angrily. Am I going to be crippled just like that? You offended the young lord. You should be thankful that he didn't kill you. Murong Chun scoffed. Avenge? Do I have to fight the young lord? You're really stupid. It's embarrassing to have a son like you. Murong Liang said, So I have to cripple my martial arts for nothing. That's right. It's your fault for being stupid. This is a lesson for you. Murong Chun shook his head. Alright, Hang Daji, you guys should go back. Remember not to provoke the young lord in the future. Yes. The two of them nodded obediently. Although Murong Chun was friendly, they always felt timid when they stood in front of him. They did not dare to speak loudly. After the two of them left, Murong Chun shook his head and looked at Murong Liang. He pointed at him. Your martial arts were crippled. How embarrassing! I didn't expect Zhuge Tian to be so powerful. You're a grandmaster, Murong Chun said angrily. It's understandable if you're an innate master. Do you really think you're an innate master after pretending to be one? Father, Zhuge Tian's sword technique was too fast. I couldn't react at all. Murong Liang shook his head and gritted his teeth. I was already hit when I tried my best. That fast? Murong Chun frowned and pondered. Murong Liang said, I don't think you can defeat him, father. Murong Chun's frown deepened. Murong Liang said, I'm not exaggerating. It's true. His sword is too fast. That means he's trying to provoke me into fighting him. Murong Chun nodded slowly. If he defeats me, he'll amaze the world with a single brilliant feat. His position as the young lord will be secure. Murong Liang was shocked. Is he targeting you, father? This young lord really can't be underestimated. Murong Chun rubbed his chin and smiled. This is getting interesting. Father, we should just kill a guy like him to prevent any accidents, Murong Liang said. Murong Chun shook his head. We can't kill him for now. Otherwise, everyone will know that I'm the one who did it. After all, the grudge between the two of you has been blown out of proportion. He didn't do it on purpose, did he? Murong Liang laughed coldly. So that I won't dare to kill him? Chapter 580. Murong Liang gritted his teeth and said, I don't believe that he's that cunning. Murong Chun looked at him. Murong Liang said, I think he did it on impulse. Hee. Murong Chun chuckled and nodded. You're right. Maybe he was just being impulsive. He's not as strong as we think he is. So, don't think too much about it. Just focus on recuperating and cultivating from the beginning. Murong Liang gritted his teeth. Father, I really can't accept this. I want to cripple his martial arts too. No problem. Murong Chun nodded. As long as you can do it, crippling his martial arts is nothing. But, Murong Liang frowned. Murong Chun said, I'm not going to help you with this. If you want to cripple his martial arts, you'll have to train hard on your own. Once you've mastered your martial arts, you can do whatever you want to him. Yes. Murong Liang nodded helplessly. He knew that it was useless to say anything more. He looked at Murong Chun and said unwillingly, Father, aren't you going to uphold justice for me? Murong Chun patted his shoulder and said gently, I'll help you. However, you'll have to take revenge on your own. You're already a man. You can't rely on an old man like me for everything. You should work hard on your own. Yes, Murong Liang said slowly. Murong Chun waved his hand and two maids came over to help Murong Liang into the house. He paced around the courtyard with his hands clasped behind his back. The moonlight was like water, shining on his uncertain face. Qiao San widened his eyes and looked at Chu Li anxiously. Chu Li sat on the recliner in the courtyard and lazily rocked back and forth. The lights in the courtyard were as bright as day. Qiao San's expression was clear. Young master, you are too rash, he said anxiously. Chu Li glanced at him. Qiao San's heart skipped a beat, and he quickly smiled. It's my mistake, please forgive me, young master. Chu Li scoffed. Qiao San continued, Young lord, that's Elder Murong's son. Crippling him is equivalent to slapping Elder Murong in the face. How can he take this lying down? You can't take this lying down? Chu Li smiled faintly. So what? Elder Murong must do it, Qiao San said. Chu Li said, Isn't that perfect? Everything will be fine once I defeat Murong Chun. This. Qiao San was dumbfounded and speechless. The young master's martial arts were profound, but compared to Elder Murong, he was still lacking. Elder Murong was also a genius, and he had cultivated for so long. The young master had only cultivated for 5 to 6 years, which was 10 times less. Chu Li calmly said, "All right, I can't be bothered to listen to you. Gather? Morris Arundinatia, young master, what if Elder Murong comes to seek justice? What should we do?" Xiao San sighed. "I don't want to repeat myself." Chu Li stretched out his finger lazily and pointed outside. "Scram! Young master, if you don't leave now, I'll make a move." Chu Li scoffed. "Yes." Xiao San sighed and shook his head as he left the courtyard. Chu Li saw him shaking his head at the door, so he shook his head as well. Xiao San was loyal, but unfortunately, he was cold-blooded and heartless. He was only loyal to Zhuge Tian, which was strange. The next morning, Chu Li returned from the Tianshu courtyard and appeared in the courtyard of Crouching Bull Mountain. The fairy's capital was quiet. Ever since the secret guardian's hall spoke, no one dared to cause trouble for him. The scariest thing about the secret guardian's hall was that they had eyes everywhere. Even if he obtained the secret manual, the secret guardian's hall would still find out about it. If the secret was leaked, people would come looking for him everywhere and kill him to steal the secret manual. With such concerns, people started to hesitate and wonder if it was worth it. He practiced the cloud-slashing sword technique in the courtyard for a while and improved a lot. The key to the cloud-slashing sword technique was not the sword force, but the circulation of the heart technique. As long as the heart technique could keep up, the sword would be extremely fast. The faster the heart technique, the faster the sword. Chu Li's spirit was strong, and the speed of his heart technique was much faster than Zhuge Tian's. The cloud-slashing sword technique was even more powerful in his hands. Xiao San was already standing outside the door, listening to the movements in the courtyard. When he heard the sound of training, he stood still. Chu Li did not bother and continued to practice his sword technique. An hour later, Xiao San knocked on the door. "Young master! Young master!" Chu Li said, "Come in." Xiao San pushed the door open and entered. His expression changed. "Young master, this is bad. Elder Murong is here." "Let him be." Chu Li was still waving his sword, but his sword force slowed down. Xiao San paced back and forth anxiously. If they really fight, Chu Li did not bother to say more. Footsteps were heard, followed by laughter. "Young master, we're sorry to disturb you." Chu Li did not stop waving his sword. He glanced at the 6 people who entered. The leader, Murong Chun, had a sharp face and was as skinny as a hemp stick. His eyes were bright, but he did not give off the impression that he was weak. It was as if his skinny body contained unparalleled strength that made people feel threatened. Behind him were 4 elders and a middle-aged man. They were all top-notch grandmasters. The top-notch masters of Crouching Bull Mountain were here. Murong Chun did not mind Chu Li's coldness. He closed-fist saluted. "Young master, I'm here to apologize." Chu Li said, "What crime did Elder Murong commit?" "It's the father's fault for not teaching his son properly. My son offended you yesterday. I hope you won't take it to heart, young master." Murong Chun closed-fist saluted and smiled. This kid did not respect his seniority. He was crippled of his martial arts by you. He asked for it. Chu Li was still waving his sword. He said, "Elder Murong, do you really think so?" "Of course." Murong Chun smiled. "The hill master is in isolated cultivation. Young master, you're alone. If you don't take good care of me and something happens to you, I won't be able to face the hill master. Not only did my son not understand my intentions, he even fought with you out of pride. He deserves to die." Chu Li kept his sword and sized him up. He said lazily, "Fought out of pride? Elder Murong, do you think it's just a fight out of pride? Am I wrong?" Murong Chun said respectfully, "Is there something else that you're hiding? Please enlighten me, young master." "I wouldn't dare to enlighten you." Chu Li smiled. Elder Murong is very powerful. I wouldn't dare to speak carelessly. What do you mean by that? Murong Chun said with a straight face. I'm loyal to the Hill Master. I wouldn't dare to disrespect you, young master. No matter how powerful I am, I'm only doing it for the sake of the sect. I don't care how many people I offend. He glanced at Xiao San. Young master, please don't listen to me. Chu Li said, You want to kill Xiao San? Murong Chun chuckled. Young master, you're already an adult. You can't be lazy anymore. I can't always be in charge of the sect's affairs. Young master, you should prepare to inherit the Hill Master's mantle and start handling the sect's affairs. You need someone smarter and more capable to serve you. As for Xiao San, he's been serving you for many years. Even if he doesn't contribute much, he's still worked hard. It's time for him to take a break and enjoy the happiness of a family. Chapter 581. Chu Li smiled and did not comment on it. Murong Chun smiled. Young lord, what do you think of my idea? Chu Li said, I would like to ask Elder Murong if I can make the decision for Xiao San? Well, if there are no unforeseen circumstances, of course you can make the decision, young lord. Murong Chun smiled. Chu Li said, It's good that I can make the decision. I thought that I'd become a puppet and that I have to listen to Elder Murong's every move. You flatter me. Murong Chun shook his head. Chu Li said, Xiao San is my man. You don't have to worry about whether to let him go back and enjoy his family. I'll think about it myself. Hee, that's good. Young lord, you can't be so free all the time. You should learn how to deal with the internal affairs of the sect. Murong Chun smiled. Chu Li shook his head. I don't have the right to deal with the internal affairs of the sect. My father is still young and strong. He can live for another 100 years. Why should I waste my time? What I should do now is to cultivate. It won't be too late for me to deal with the internal affairs when my martial arts have reached the peak. What do you think, Elder Murong? About that? Murong Chun was secretly impressed. He chuckled and said, The Hill Master has been cultivating all this while, and so has the young master. It doesn't look good for the sect's affairs to be shouldered by Elder Xia and me. That's good. Chu Li said, Elder Murong likes to monopolize power. I'll give you the power. As long as you stay true to your role and don't have any ulterior motives, it'll be fine. My father is focusing on cultivating to see if he can reach the enlightened mastery's boundary. I'm not very talented. I'm afraid that I'll mess up the internal affairs of the sect, Murong Chun said. Chu Li shook his head. My father has been in isolated cultivation for the past few years. Elder Murong has done a great job. You don't have to be so humble. Murong Chun laughed. Thank you, young lord. Chu Li said, but Elder Murong's martial arts cannot fall behind. Of course, Murong Chun said. Chu Li squinted his eyes and said, I've been cultivating for the past few years, but I've never had anyone to guide me. Elder Murong came at the right time. Let's spar and see where I'm lacking. I wouldn't dare. Murong Chun waved his hand and smiled. My martial art is only average. I'm not qualified to teach the young lord. Why don't you let Elder Xia do it? Elder Xia's martial art is the best in our sect. Elder Xia is just below the Hill Master. He pointed at a middle-aged man behind him. The middle-aged man had a round face and a tall and sturdy figure. He looked rough and heroic as he coldly watched from the sidelines. Seeing that they were talking about him, he cupped his fists and said, My mediocre martial arts skills are still unpresentable. On the other hand, Elder Murong's martial arts skills have improved tremendously over the years. You're now the #1 expert in the sect. I'm ashamed of my inferiority. Elder Murong, please do it. Chu Li frowned and said faintly, Looks like Elder Murong looks down on me. I wouldn't dare. Murong Chun quickly waved his hand. Chu Li said, If that's the case, what's the harm in having a spar? Are you afraid that you'll be too ashamed to face others if you lose to me? Hee hee. Murong Chun chuckled. It's rare for you to be so confident, young lord. Alright, let's have a match. A smile appeared on Chu Li's face. That's more like it. Murong Chun said, Young lord, how about we limit it to 10 moves? Chu Li smiled. Let's have a good spar. Why do we have to limit it to moves? Come, let me experience Elder Murong's swordsmanship. Alright. Murong Chun smiled. He knew that Chu Li must have hidden his martial arts skills and was biding his time. This time, Chu Li used all sorts of methods to force him to fight. Chu Li wanted to defeat him and amaze the world with a single brilliant feat. He must have some confidence in winning the sect. His rationality prevented him from fighting Chu Li, but the pride in his heart made him unwilling to accept it. He was also a young genius who had made a name for himself long ago. If it was not for Zhuge Feng, he would have become the leader of Crouching Bull Mountain a long time ago. He could not defeat Zhuge Feng, but could it be that his son could not? No matter how many tricks he used, he was still a martial artist. He still had his basic pride. How could he not have the courage to face a challenge from a junior? If he could not even defeat a junior, how could he talk about anything else? As he thought about this, he was filled with pride. He cast aside his rationality and decided to have a good fight. He wanted to teach this arrogant young man a lesson. Please. Chu Li held his sword and took 2 steps forward. He held his long sword horizontally and pointed it at Murong Chun. The heavenly demonic orb fell into his precordium. Suddenly, an infinite amount of energy was added to his body. His 5 senses became sharper and his heart technique circulated faster. He pushed the cloud-slashing sword technique to its limit. Murong Chun slowly pulled out his sword and approached Chu Li. He suddenly stabbed forward like a poisonous snake coming out of its hole. It was fast and ruthless. Swoosh! With a light whistle, the tip of Chu Li's sword was already in front of his throat. Murong Chun frowned and took a step back. Swoosh! The tip of the sword arrived again. Murong Chun took another step back. Swoosh! The tip of the sword was still there, following him like a shadow. Murong Chun swung his sword to block, but he missed. The tip of Chu Li's sword was already at his throat. Chu Li took a step back and said, Elder Murong, your sword is too slow. Murong Chun felt as if his face was on fire. Anger and shame surged up and almost swallowed him. He was already wary of Chu Li's swordsmanship. He felt that it might be extraordinary, but he did not expect Chu Li's sword to be so fast. It was so fast that it was beyond his imagination. He did not even have time to use his skills. He could not even block it. Chu Li turned to look at Xia Lian. Elder Xia, please advise me. Xia Lian took a step forward and unsheathed his sword. I would like to experience young lord's swordsmanship too. Chu Li smiled faintly. Make your move. Xia Lian did not say anything else. He thrust his sword forward and pushed it to its maximum speed. Swoosh! The sound of clothes being torn apart could be heard. Swoosh! Chu Li's sword was aimed at his throat. Xia Lian was helpless. He could only retreat and block his throat with his sword at the same time. Swoosh! Chu Li took 2 steps forward and the tip of the sword was still at his throat. Xia Lian waved his long sword. The flash of the sword was like a mirror in front of him. Swoosh! Chu Li thrust his sword forward. The tip of the sword pierced through the flash of the sword and reached his throat. Xia Lian had no choice but to retreat. He kept swinging his long sword to defend himself. Chu Li followed up with another thrust. Ding! Xia Lian's long sword flew out. The tip of Chu Li's sword was already in front of his throat. He then took a step forward and closed fist saluted. Elder Xia, thank you for letting me win. Xia Lian looked at him in shock. The powerful force that came from the sword made his heart palpitate. He was actually so small and powerless in front of this force. It was really shocking. Chu Li smiled at the 4 elders. One of the elders stepped forward. Young lord, you have great swordsmanship. I would like to experience it. Chu Li nodded. Please. The elder did not say anything else. He punched the air. Chu Li thrust his sword forward again. It broke through the fist force without any resistance. The tip of the sword was in front of his throat. The elder ducked to avoid it. At the same time, he punched again. However, Chu Li's sword was already in front of his throat. He was forced to withdraw his fist force and retreat. However, he still could not escape the tip of the sword. Chu Li withdrew his sword and retreated. He closed fist saluted. Thank you for letting me win. He then looked at the other three elders. The three of them were unconvinced. They tried to block Chu Li's fast sword. Chapter 582. P.S. Update complete. Chu Li sheathed his sword and closed fist saluted. Elders, I'm sorry. Hee. Murong Chun finally calmed down. He shook his head and sighed. Young master, you're a genius in martial arts. You're even better than the hill master. Congratulations. Chu Li had defeated all the elders in one go, which indirectly reduced his embarrassment. He was not the only one who had been defeated, everyone had been defeated. It was not that his martial arts was not strong, it was that Chu Li's martial arts was too strong. This made him feel relieved. Chu Li said, You flatter me. Not at all. Murong Chun quickly said, Looks like the number one master in the sect is going to belong to you, young master. Chu Li said, I'm still far from my father. The hill master's martial arts is the strongest. When we ranked him, we always put him outside. Murong Chun smiled. The hill master has a successor. I'm sure he'll be happy. Chu Li said, He's busy with isolated cultivation. He won't have time for this. If there's nothing else, you're dismissed. Young master. Murong Chun said, If there's nothing else, come to the basilica and listen to the discussions. Crouching Bull Mountain will belong to you sooner or later. Chu Li shook his head. I'm not interested in these trivial matters. I just want to cultivate. You guys can deal with it as you see fit. Just don't kick my father out of his position as hill master. Young master, your joke isn't funny at all. Murong Chun laughed. Chu Li smiled faintly. Take it as a joke. I really don't want to hurt the harmony. I don't want the sect to kill each other. Yes. Don't worry, young master, Murong Chun said. Chu Li sheathed his sword. Then I won't send you off. Then we won't bother you anymore. Goodbye. Murong Chun closed fist saluted. Everyone closed fist saluted and slowly left the courtyard. Outside the courtyard, there were two young men peeking at the door. They saw what happened. It was Zhou Hang and Chu Daji. When they saw Murong Chun and the others leaving, they quickly ran away. The two of them walked on the bluestone path. Flowers bloomed on both sides, but they could not care less. There was only shock on their faces. The scene from before was beyond their imagination. They walked forward in a daze, not knowing where they were going. Senior Marshal Brother Zhou, Senior Marshal Brother Chu. Suddenly, a sweet voice interrupted their daze. Only then did they realize that they had unknowingly entered a forest. There was an empty training ground in the forest, and a beautiful woman was practicing. She was dressed in a light pink outfit. Her figure was slender and exquisite, and her curves were astonishing. Junior sister Xia. The two hurriedly cupped their fists. What happened? Why are you so scared? Xia Wei wiped her forehead and said with a smile, Tell us. And nothing. The two of them shook their heads. Xia Wei said, I heard that senior brother Murong was crippled of his martial arts? Yes. The two nodded. However, he was cursing in his heart. Isn't it all because of you? If it wasn't for your instigation, Murong wouldn't have wanted to kill Zhuge Tian. In the end, he angered Zhuge Tian and crippled his martial arts. Both of us are fine. Before this, they had doubted Chu Li's words. Now that they had seen Chu Li's martial arts, their impression of him changed. They felt that he was unfathomable. Moreover, Murong Liang had admitted it himself. Tsk, what a pity! Xiao Wei smiled. He has to cultivate again. I don't know when he'll catch up to us. Murong has great potential. He'll recover very quickly. In less than 2 years, he'll catch up to us. Zhou Heng said. Xiao Wei said, you guys are too weak. He'll catch up to you in 2 years. You have no ambition. If you want him to never catch up to you, are you going to be his lackeys forever? Useless. Zhou Heng said, Junior Sister Xia, it doesn't matter how strong we are. We won't be able to catch up to the young lord. How strong is his martial arts? Xia Wei said nonchalantly. If he could cripple senior brother Murong, he must have some skills. Sigh. The two of them lost interest in talking about him. Xia Wei looked at their expressions and felt that something was off. She smiled sweetly. Tell me, how strong is he? Zhou Heng sighed. If I told you that he could defeat Elder Murong and Elder Xia, would you believe me, Junior Sister Xia? Xia Wei pursed her lips and giggled. You guys are really daydreaming. It's not daydreaming. Chu Daji scoffed. It's the truth. Nonsense. Xia Wei shook her head. Do you think he could defeat my father? Chu Daji scoffed. Elder Xia was indeed defeated by him. Other than my father, who else could it be? Xia Wei smiled. She was getting more and more skeptical. None of the 6 grand elders survived. Zhou Heng shook his head and sighed. His sword was too fast. I couldn't even see it clearly. One by one, they were defeated by him. It was like a dream. Are you guys really not joking? Xia Wei frowned. Zhou Heng said, Junior Sister Xia, do you think we would dare to joke like that? That's true. Xia Wei was confused. Does he really have such powerful sword skills? Too fast. Chu Daji scoffed. If you don't believe me, you can ask Elder Xia. How did he cultivate martial arts? Xia Wei smiled. He's only been cultivating for a few years. How did he defeat my father and the others? It can't be wrong. The two of them said in a low voice. I'll go ask. Xia Wei turned around and walked out. Zhou Heng and Chu Daji followed closely behind. They arrived at Chu Li's courtyard. Qiao San was talking to Chu Li. He had been in a daze. Murong Chun and the others had left for a long time, but he still had not regained his senses. He could not believe what he had just seen. It was as surreal as a dream. Chu Li was also in a daze for a while. He knew that his spiritual force was strong. If he performed the cloud-slashing sword technique, it would be more powerful than Zhuge Tian. However, he did not expect it to be so much more powerful. Coupled with the heavenly demonic power, the cloud-slashing sword technique's power was 4 times that of Zhuge Tian's. His cultivation level was originally lower than Murong Chun and the others. However, his sword skills were more powerful than them. When he regained his senses, he glared at Qiao San. All right, look at you. Young lord, it can't be real, right? It can't be fake, right? Chu Li said impatiently. Is your mouth useless now? Qiao San chuckled. It can't be real. Chu Li said, don't be crazy. There are people outside. Qiao San quickly stopped smiling and opened the door. There were 3 people standing outside. Is the young lord here? Zhou Heng turned around and saw Chu Li standing in the courtyard with his sword. Qiao San smiled. Masters, the young lord is studying his sword skills. It's not good to disturb him. Zhuge Tian. Zhuge Tian. Xia Wei suddenly called out. Chu Li helplessly said, let them in. Qiao San shook his head. You guys, please come in. The 3 of them followed him into the courtyard and stood in front of Chu Li. Chu Li said, you guys want to see my sword skills too, right? Yes, I do, Zhou Heng said. Chu Li nodded. No problem. Come, you guys can come at me together. Chapter 583. Xia Wei harumphed. All 3 of you? What arrogance! Chu Li glanced at her. The disdain in his eyes caused Xia Wei to feel a surge of anger in her chest. An indescribable fire burned through her entire body. Her beautiful face was flushed as if she was drunk, becoming even more beautiful and alluring. Her bright eyes glared at him hatefully. Chu Li calmly replied, "What are you waiting for? Wait." Xia Wei waved her hand to stop Zhou Heng and Chu Daji. She turned around and waved her hand at them. "Step back, I'll do it myself." "By yourself?" The two hesitated. Zhou Heng said, "Junior sister Xia, you are no match for him." "How would you know without competing?" Xia Wei said coldly. She pursed her plump red lips and glared at Chu Li. "I'd like to see how powerful he really is." Sigh. Zhou Heng and Chu Daji shook their heads and sighed. They took 2 steps back helplessly. Not only did they know that Chu Li's martial arts was tyrannical, but they also knew that Xia Wei had a bad temper and would not go back on her word. The two of them couldn't disobey, so they could only watch her suffer. They didn't know if this would dishearten her and cause her to stop practicing martial arts. Chu Li frowned as he looked at Xia Wei. "Don't? Playing with aluminum? Working mulberry, watch my sword." Xia Wei gnashed her teeth in hatred at his arrogance. She wanted nothing more than to pierce a hole in him with her sword. Her sword was swift and fierce. In her heart, there was a stubbornness that refused to admit defeat. Although she was a woman, she was stronger than men. That was why she trained very hard, but she did not show it. Others thought that she was just playing around and did not put much effort into training. The speed of this sword was extremely fast, and it was filled with divine qi. Chu Li shook his head. For a young lady, her swordsmanship was indeed extraordinary. However, no matter how extraordinary it was only for people of her age. She was not a peerless genius, and could not be compared to Shao Qi and Lu Yurong. Ding! Chu Li lightly blocked it. Xia Wei only felt a huge and uncontrollable force enter her palm. She unconsciously loosened her grip, and the long sword flew out, stabbing into the door of the small courtyard. The long sword trembled. The blade of the sword was as bright as the spring water. The spring water rippled and flickered with a clear light. Chu Li nodded. "Good sword." Xia Wei's face became even more beautiful, but it was burning hot. She wanted nothing more than to find a hole to hide in. One move. Not even one move. Chu Li glanced at her. "Your sword is good, but your character is average and your swordsmanship is even worse. You can leave now." Xia Wei gritted her snow-white teeth. She wanted nothing more than to tear him into pieces. Her pearly white teeth creaked as she gnashed them. Her bright eyes were burning and threatening, as if she wanted to burn him to death. Chu Li turned around and looked at Zhou Heng and Chu Daji. "Do you guys want to try as well? How about we attack together?" Zhou Heng asked. Chu Li nodded. "That would be best." Without another word, the two of them drew their swords and thrust forward. Sword flowers enveloped him, displaying their exquisite swordsmanship. Chu Li shook his head and raised the tip of his sword. Ding ding! 2 crisp sounds rang out, and the 2 swords had already left their hands. Chu Li said, "You've only seen its form but not its power. It's just an empty frame. You've gone astray." The two of them were already prepared for this outcome. Zhou Heng hurriedly asked, "How did it go wrong?" "You're eager for quick success and instant benefit. You're overly obsessed with exquisite swordsmanship," Chu Li said faintly. "But your cultivation level is a mess. You want to build a skyscraper without a stable foundation. Go back and cultivate again. Bring out the enthusiasm that Murong Liang has. He's a grandmaster after all." "That's where you're wrong. Murong hasn't even reached grandmaster yet." Chu Daji laughed. Chu Li glanced at him and laughed. His contemptuous expression and mocking laughter made Chu Daji extremely angry. He shut his mouth and did not want to talk to him anymore. Zhou Heng asked, "Is Murong really a grandmaster?" "He's very secretive. He managed to fool both of you. Looks like he inherited some of his father's wisdom," Chu Li said faintly. With your qualifications, he'll surpass you in a year. Murong doesn't have such good qualifications. The two of them shook their heads. They had always played with Murong Liang and knew his martial arts very well. Although he was strong, he was not that strong. I don't know if it's better to say that you're stupid or that he's smart. Chu Li waved his hand. I can't be bothered with these twists and turns. Just focus on cultivating your martial arts. You guys go, don't delay my cultivation. All right then. Zhou Hang closed fist saluted. We'll take our leave now. Chu Li waved his hand impatiently. Xiao Wei kept staring at Chu Li. She did not even blink as she tried to catch Chu Li's gaze. However, Chu Li did not look at her anymore. She had nowhere to vent her anger. Chu Li finally looked at her. Why are you still here? Do you want to warm my bed? You! Xiao Wei's eyes widened in disbelief. She could not believe that Chu Li would say something like that. Chu Li said faintly, poor qualifications and a bad temper, but a big heart. You're really asking for trouble. You. Xiao Wei pointed at him. She wanted to pull out her sword and stab him, but she realized that her sword was not in her hand. She turned around and pulled out her sword before dashing out of the courtyard. Zhou Hang and Chu Daji quickly closed fist, saluted Chu Li and ran out to chase after Xiao Wei. In one breath, Xiao Wei ran to the forest where she usually trained and slashed at a tree. Every time she slashed, she would shout, "Pig! Pig! 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 Pig!" Xiao Wei gritted her teeth and shouted. She slashed at the pine tree that was as thick as a person's arms around it. With a creak, it slowly fell down and landed on top of their heads. The three of them dodged it easily. Xiao Wei's beautiful face flushed red and became even more beautiful. She gritted her white teeth and said hatefully to the two, "He's a pig." The two of them hesitated for a moment. Xiao Wei glared at them. "You're on his side." No. The two of them quickly waved their hands. Zhou Hang sighed. To be honest, even if he's a pig, he's still a powerful pig. Xiao Wei burst out laughing and rolled her eyes at him. No matter how powerful he is, he's still a pig. The two of them nodded helplessly. Xiao Wei scoffed. All right, you guys can leave. Zhou Hang was worried. Zhuge Tian is not a normal person. Don't lower yourself to his level. That's right. He hides in his room to cultivate all day. His brain is not normal anymore. Chu Daji nodded. He even said that Murong is a grandmaster. He really has the guts to say that. Zhou Hang and Xiao Wei looked at each other without saying a word. Could it be? Chu Daji's eyes widened. His face was big and his eyes were small. He looked ridiculous when he stared at them. All right, he's useless anyway. He has to start from scratch. You guys should train hard too. Don't let him catch up to you. Xiao Wei scoffed. If he really is a grandmaster, then we really can't compete with him. He's much more talented than us. Zhou Hang shook his head and sighed. I just think that Murong is too much. I had the same feeling before, but I'm not sure. Is Murong really a grandmaster? Chu Daji was in disbelief. Xiao Wei pouted. Brother Chu, you're an idiot. Chu Daji said, Really? I'm too lazy to talk to you. Xiao Wei turned around and left. The night was hazy and the moonlight was like water. There was no light in the courtyard. The moonlight shone on Murong Chun's face. He sat by the stone table and tapped his left index finger on the table. Chapter 584. Yes, that's what I plan to do, Murong Chun said calmly. Murong Liang said, Aren't we going to wait until the critical moment to reveal the truth? Now is the critical moment, Murong Chun said. Murong Liang said anxiously, Isn't it time for him to inherit the throne? Isn't it too early to reveal it now? We can't kill him with one blow. Murong Chun let go of his hand and stood up. He paced around the courtyard with his hands behind his back. Let's wait a little longer. He's famous now, but it's just fame. He doesn't have any real power. Murong Liang said, If we reveal his past now, the Hill Master won't be here, so we won't chase him out of the mountain. Their plan was to use the discord between the Hill Master and the young Master to expose the young Master's scandals. They would anger the Hill Master and chase him out of the mountain. That way, they would be able to get rid of all obstacles. Murong Liang was the most talented disciple in their generation. He had been hiding it all this time. As long as Zhuge Tian was chased out of the mountain, Murong Liang would amaze everyone again and become the next Hill Master. Murong Chun sighed and looked up at the moon. I'm just afraid that I won't have the chance to suppress him anymore. How could that be? Murong Liang did not think much of it. No matter how strong he is, he can forget about becoming the Hill Master after all those scandals. Sigh. Murong Chun shook his head. It's not that simple. Father, are you afraid of him? Murong Liang asked. Are you afraid of him? Murong Chun turned to look at him and laughed. Good boy, you're not worried at all. To be honest, you're no match for him. Murong Liang scoffed. So what if he's strong? He can forget about becoming the Hill Master. I don't think he's interested in being the Hill Master anymore. Murong Chun shook his head. He's so strong. I'm afraid he's not satisfied with staying in the mountain. As long as we reveal his past, he'll leave in a fit of pique. He won't have to go against the Hill Master. I see. Murong Liang nodded slowly. The older, the wiser. His father's move was accurate and very powerful. If he left the mountain, it would be easy to leave but difficult to return. Murong Chun said, I wonder if we can defeat him this time. It won't be a problem. Murong Liang said confidently, his crime is unforgivable. Murong Chun nodded slowly. I'm worried that Xiaolian will cause trouble. The evidence is irrefutable. What can he do? Murong Liang scoffed. What irrefutable evidence? An indifferent voice suddenly sounded. The two of them stiffened and slowly turned their heads. They saw a silhouette standing in the shadow of the courtyard wall. He slowly walked out. The moonlight shone on him like water. They recognized him immediately. Murong Liang cried out involuntarily, Zhuge Tian. Chu Li looked at him and nodded. You look good. It seems like you've recovered well. Murong Liang growled, What are you doing here? Chu Li looked at Murong Chun and smiled faintly. Elder Murong, I initially wanted to get along with you peacefully. Unfortunately, a man has no intention to hurt a tiger, but a tiger has the intention to eat a man's heart. Murong Chun sighed. Young lord, your light body technique is amazing. Chu Li calmly replied, Elder Murong, you flatter me. Let's talk about the irrefutable evidence. Young lord, you must have heard wrongly. Murong Chun smiled. There's no concrete evidence. Chu Li looked at him calmly. Murong Chun smiled and looked back at him. He did not show any hostility or guilt. Chu Li took a step forward and stood in front of Murong Liang. The tip of his sword was already at his throat. He turned to look at Murong Chun and said calmly, Elder Murong, do you think I can kill your son with this sword? Young lord, please have mercy. Murong Chun stretched out his hand. Chu Li looked at Murong Liang, who did not change his expression. You're really something. It'll be a pity to kill you. Murong Liang laughed coldly. Zhuge Tian, kill me if you dare. Chu Li looked at him faintly. His voice was still warm and magnetic, as if he was chatting with an old friend. Why wouldn't I dare to kill you? You! Murong Liang was speechless. Chu Li glanced at Murong Chun. It's not just you. I can even kill Elder Murong if I want to. Why wouldn't I dare? If anyone asks, I'll just say that we were learning martial arts and it was just a mistake. Are you going to kill me to pay with your life? If you do that, everyone will be in danger. Crouching Bull Mountain will be divided. Murong Chun said slowly, Crouching Bull Mountain will be finished. Chu Li laughed. What does it have to do with me whether Crouching Bull Mountain is finished or not? Do I need Crouching Bull Mountain? Young lord, you're wrong. Murong Chun said. Young lord, no matter how strong you are, you're just one person. If you're up against a huge force, you'll still need the support of a sect. If not, you'll be killed with numbers. Chu Li thought for a while and nodded slowly. That makes sense. He put away his long sword. Murong Liang sighed in relief. His back was already covered in cold sweat. Chu Li said, I don't like to kill people either. I won't kill if I can avoid it. It depends on what you choose. If you want to be my enemy, then there's nothing I can do. I can only send you and your son to hell together. If you know what's good for you and become friends, that'll be the best. I just want to cultivate in peace. I don't want messy things to disturb me. Yes, don't worry, young lord. We know what to do. Murong Chun quickly nodded. I'll destroy all the evidence. I won't let anything out. Chu Li smiled. Elder Murong is indeed worthy of your position. You're a wise man. However, your son still has some hidden intentions. I hope he won't do anything stupid. I'm sorry to disturb you so late at night. Goodbye. After he finished speaking, he stepped into the shadow under the wall. He was silent as if he had melted into the shadows. Murong Liang stared at the shadow. Murong Chun sighed in relief and shook his head. Father? Murong Liang asked. Has he left? Yes. Murong Chun nodded. He suddenly became calm, as if he had become a different person. Father? Murong Liang noticed that something was wrong and looked at him. Murong Chun sighed calmly. Another hill chieftain. Murong Liang looked at him in confusion. Murong Chun looked at Murong Liang with a strange gaze. In the end, he sighed and said, Bloodlines really can't be faked. A dragon gives birth to a dragon. Murong Liang was even more confused. Murong Chun sighed. At that moment, I felt like I saw the Hill Master. Liang this is fate. Just accept it. Father, what do you mean? I don't understand. Murong Liang frowned. Murong Chun said, At first, I thought that the young lord was useless. Your chance has come. Your aptitude is the best among your peers. No one can compare to you. Now it seems like I was wrong. The young lord is still the young lord. Father, you've given up? Murong Liang's eyes widened in disbelief. Murong Chun said, A wise man submits to circumstances. Do you think you can defeat the young lord? Of course. Murong Liang scoffed. He only has martial arts. He doesn't have a brain. I think you're the one who has no brain. Murong Chun shook his head and said calmly, His brain is much better than yours. You can't defeat him. It's just like me and the Hill Master. We'll have the same fate. Find a good woman and wait for the next generation. Chapter 585. Murong Chun waved his hand and said, I'm tired. You should rest too. Father, you. Murong Liang called out unwillingly. Murong Chun waved his hand and went into the house. Murong Liang gritted his teeth. His expression was ferocious as he glared at the shadow in the corner where Chu Li was standing. He wanted to kill him. Unfortunately, he did not have any martial arts. He could not kill him even if he wanted to. He could only cultivate desperately. Father had shrunk back again. He was full of schemes, but he was too timid. He shrunk back as soon as he was scared. No wonder he could only be an elder in his entire life, and not a sect master. He was different. If he did not try, how would he know if he could overturn that guy? If he did not try, he would regret it for the rest of his life. Murong Chun returned to his bed and sat down calmly. His son would not be satisfied. He had to think of a way to suppress him, or else he would not be able to protect him if he caused trouble. Power was important, but it would be foolish to lose one's life because of it. The scene from earlier appeared in his mind again. He was so young, but he was like a ghost. He managed to nip the danger in the bud. This was the future Hill Master. Chu Li returned to his courtyard and smiled. Murong Chun was a tactful person. This kind of person could live for a long time. As for Murong Liang, he was hot-blooded. He would not be so peaceful. However, with Murong Chun suppressing him and Chu Li keeping an eye on him, he would not be able to do anything. He sighed in relief. He finally got rid of this trouble. If Murong Chun exposed him, he would not be able to stay in Crouching Bull Mountain. He wanted to control Crouching Bull Mountain. How could he fail in such a small task? Knock knock. There was a knock on the door. Chu Li raised his voice and said, "Elder Xia, please come in." Xia Lian slowly stepped into the courtyard and looked at Chu Li. He was tall and had an imposing aura as he stood there. His eyes were bright as if he could see through Chu Li's heart. "Elder Xia, please sit down." Chu Li extended his hand and said, "What brings you here so late at night? There's something I don't understand. I won't be able to sleep if I don't figure it out." Xia Lian took a big step forward and sat across the stone table. His gaze was still sharp. Chu Li smiled. Xia Lian scanned the courtyard and frowned. "Is Qiao San not here?" "He's gone back to rest," Chu Li said. "Elder Xia must be curious about what martial arts I'm practicing?" "Yes." Xia Lian frowned and said, "As far as I know, the sword technique of the Crouching Bull Mountain is not that fast." Chu Li's sword was extraordinarily fast. Such a fast sword technique was definitely not the nameless sword technique. No matter how good the Crouching Bull Mountain sword technique was, it would not be able to reach such a level. Chu Li said, "Elder Xia, you're right. I'm not cultivating the Crouching Bull Mountain sword technique. Young master has another master." Xia Lian's eyes flashed. His gaze became sharper and more intense. Chu Li could not help but laugh. "So this is what Elder Xia is worried about," Xia Lian said in a deep voice. "Young master is still young, you don't know how powerful this is. I wonder which expert taught young master kung fu?" Chu Li remained silent. Xia Lian said, "Can't you say it? Or is it that this expert doesn't allow me to say?" He was more and more suspicious of this person's motive. Could it be that he had ulterior motives towards the Crouching Bull Mountain? Although the Crouching Bull Mountain was a first-rate faction, it did not mean that they did not have any enemies. They also had to be vigilant. There were many factions that were eyeing the Crouching Bull Mountain covetously. They could not wait for the Crouching Bull Mountain to be destroyed and divided among themselves. A surpassing state was something that many factions wanted. Many factions were envious of it. Chu Li said, "Forget it. Since Elder Xia asked, I'll tell you the truth. I obtained a secret manual." "What secret manual?" Xia Lian hurriedly asked. Chu Li smiled but did not say anything. Xia Lian suddenly understood. He slapped his forehead and smiled. "So, no one taught martial arts to you, young master?" Chu Li shook his head. "I understand Elder Xia's concern. Is someone looking for trouble with the faction?" Xia Lian sighed. "If it was in the past, I wouldn't have told you this." Chu Li nodded. Xia Lian used to not even look at him. It was obvious that he did not take this young master seriously. Xia Lian said, "Let's not talk about our old rival, Yun Haifeng. I found out that there's a new force that's targeting us." Chu Li smiled and said nonchalantly, "I'll just destroy them." Xia Lian shook his head. "I haven't been able to find out. They hide in the dark and attack us from time to time. They're annoying, but we can't do anything about them." "Have the disciples left the mountain?" Chu Li asked. "Not yet," Xia Lian said. "These disciples live on the mountain peak. Before they achieve martial arts, they can't leave the mountain. Before the Hill Master went into isolated cultivation, he gave an order that the Crouching Bull Mountain would be in a state of isolation. Anything would have to wait until the Hill Master came out of isolated cultivation." These thoughts flashed through his mind, but Chu Li saw it. Chu Li nodded thoughtfully. Xia Lian said, "But it's impossible for all the disciples to stay. They have to buy some daily necessities and deal with the outside world. When the disciples leave the mountain, they'll be attacked by these people." Chu Li said, "Elder Xia, are you worried that they've already invaded the mountain?" "Yes," Xia Lian said. These people won't give up. I'm afraid that they'll think that we're easy to bully. That's why they're worried about the young lord's martial arts background. They're afraid that it'll be used. Chu Li frowned. I want to see the heart technique of the Crouching Bull Mountain. Xia Lian said, the heart technique of the Crouching Bull Mountain is passed down by word of mouth. Only the Hill Master keeps the secret manual. Only the Hill Master knows where it's hidden. Haven't you learned the heart technique of the Crouching Bull Mountain? Chu Li scoffed. Who taught me? Xiao San didn't teach you. No. That means the Hill Master didn't give the order. You and your son. Fine, I'll teach you. Xia Lian shook his head and laughed. Thank you, Elder Xia, Chu Li said. Xia Lian said, as for sword techniques, knife techniques, and palm techniques, you can go to the martial arts library. Other than the secret heart technique of the Crouching Bull Mountain, the first few levels of the secret manual are there. The later levels are also kept by the Hill Master to prevent them from being leaked. Chu Li asked, do the other sects do the same? Xia Lian said in a low voice, as the saying goes, the heart technique of a sect is the foundation. If it's leaked, it's the same as digging up the sect's foundation. It's not far from destruction. Chu Li smiled. It seems like the martial arts of the Tempest Temple has been leaked, right? Only the most basic level has been leaked. The more advanced martial arts are not leaked at all. Furthermore, the foundation of the martial arts of the Tempest Temple is the Dermic base. Dermic base is harder to cultivate than martial arts. Without the guidance of a senior monk, don't even think about comprehending it, let alone cultivating the martial arts of the Tempest Temple. We can't compare to the foundation of the Tempest Temple. We have to be more careful, Xia Lian said. Chu Li nodded slowly. About Murong Chun. Xia Lian pondered for a moment and shook his head. Don't worry too much. He's ambitious, but he won't harm the Crouching Bull Mountain. Chu Li said, I'm not worried about Elder Murong. That's good. Xia Lian smiled and closed fist saluted. Then I won't disturb the young lord's rest. Goodbye. Chu Li sent him to the entrance of the courtyard. He frowned. Initially, he wanted to pry into the secret heart technique of the Crouching Bull Mountain. Now it seemed like it would be difficult to achieve. It would not be easy to get past Zhuge Feng. As for the surpassing state, he did not even mention it. The existence of the surpassing state was too sensitive. He had to find out more about it and see it in his mind. He could not say it out loud. Before he went to bed, he used his divine senses to look at Murong Liang. He was desperately cultivating. If this went on, Murong Liang's cultivation progress would not be fast. He had nowhere to vent his anger, so it was not suitable for him to cultivate. Chapter 586. P.S. I have to go out for something and might be back very late. I don't think I'll be able to write. I'm really sorry, I have to continue tomorrow morning. I'll try to find time to write. Chu Li returned to his own courtyard in the imperial residence of King An. In the early morning, he had finished his cultivation and was eating with Xiao Shi in the Tianshu courtyard. Chief Zhu's voice came from outside. Head Chief, Great Master Fa Yuan from the Tempest Temple is here to see you. Fa Yuan? Chu Li said, invite him in, I'll be right there. Yes, Chief Zhu replied respectfully and left. Xiao Shi was wearing a bluish-white gown and was holding a piece of pastry. She frowned. What is this little monk doing here again? Nothing good. Chu Li smiled and nodded. Xiao Shi's words were blunt, but they always hit the nail on the head. He put down his bowl and chopsticks. When he arrived at the main hall, Fa Yuan was already seated. He was handsome as usual, his gray robe was spotless. He was quietly holding a teacup with a dignified demeanor. Chu Li pressed his palms together. Fa Yuan, you don't come without a reason. Tell me, what's the matter? Fa Yuan pressed his palms together with a serious expression and sighed. Almsgiver Chu, I'm here to tell you some bad news. Chu Li raised his eyebrows. Fa Yuan sighed. Zhou Lingfeng escaped. Chu Li was startled and laughed. You're not joking, right? Isn't Zhou Lingfeng suppressed in the Tempest Temple? How could he escape from the Tempest Temple? The Tempest Temple was heavily guarded, even more so than the Imperial House. It was almost unheard of for anyone to escape from the Tempest Temple. Fa Yuan nodded slowly. I know this is a little strange, but it's true. Zhou Lingfeng has escaped. I'm here to tell you that he's determined to kill you. Chu Li stared at him. Fa Yuan sighed. This matter has become serious. Almsgiver Chu, you should know that too. I'm here to report this. Let's hear it. Chu Li shook his head. It's hard to imagine that someone suppressed by the Tempest Temple could escape. Is his ability increasing, or is the Tempest Temple just an undeserved reputation? Fa Yuan was not annoyed by Chu Li's sarcasm. He pressed his palms together and said, he was saved by his companions, and was caught off guard. Could it be his father? Chu Li said, he's a disciple of the Tempest Temple. You know him very well. It's possible that he's working with someone from the inside. It's not Zhou Lingfeng's father. Fa Yuan hesitated for a while and sighed. It's another disciple of our temple. How interesting, Chu Li said with a smile. So they're working together from the inside? Yes. Fa Yuan nodded with difficulty. Chu Li stood up and paced around with his hands behind his back. He muttered, what's the relationship between the two of them? They don't know each other. Fa Yuan said, after all, Zhou Lingfeng is not a disciple of our temple. Senior brother Fa Ren has always been in the temple, so he did not know him. Fa Ren. Chu Li muttered, if you don't recognize him, why are you still saving him? Fa Yuan sighed. Brother Fa Ren has also cultivated the Azura power technique. Chu Li laughed. That's even more ridiculous. The cultivators of the Azura power technique hate each other. Since when did they help each other? He had a good understanding of the Azura power technique. He also had a deep understanding of the Azura clan. The existence of the Outland was different from humans. They did not rely on each other, only competition. They were all independent and could not tolerate their own kind. Unless there was an Azura with a high bloodline, only then could they lead the Azura clan. If not, no one would submit to the other and they would fight to the death. Fa Yuan said, according to the news from our temple, a group of cultivators of the Azura power technique have gathered together and formed a divine church of Azura. Chu Li frowned. Could it be that there are people who have completely cultivated the Azura power technique? Even if they did not cultivate it, they must have reached a very high level. This must be a very terrifying existence. The elders of our temple are preparing to move out and see if they can suppress them. Almsgiver Chu, you must be careful too. Chu Li's face darkened and he slowly nodded. One Azura could kill until corpses littered the ground. A group of Azuras, who knew how many people would be killed and how many innocent people would die tragically. Therefore, the people of this world regarded martial arts as the foundation. Those with low martial arts were no different from ants. Once they encountered this kind of people, they would not be able to resist. Fa Yuan saw his ugly expression and comforted him. They are around the Ningjiang Road, far from the Chongming Road. Don't worry. Chu Li sighed. Really? I've been waiting for you to come and steal my secret manual. Fa Yuan smiled. Don't worry, Almsgiver Chu, we know it's just a rumor. Oh? Chu Li laughed. How would I know? The rumors outside don't make sense? I stepped into the Outland 2 years ago. It's very likely that I've cultivated the cloud-slashing treasure manual. I know that Almsgiver Chu did not cultivate the cloud-slashing treasure manual, Fa Yuan said. Chu Li raised his eyebrows. Could it be that the cloud-slashing treasure manual is in the hands of the Tempest Temple? Fa Yuan shook his head. The elders of my temple have seen the cultivators of the cloud-slashing treasure manual. They know the uniqueness of the cloud-slashing treasure manual's inner energy heart technique. Almsgiver Chu, although your martial arts is strong and you advance quickly, you did not cultivate the cloud-slashing treasure manual. No wonder. Chu Li suddenly understood. No wonder the 4 major sects did not come to join in the fun. They knew the truth and had seen the martial arts of the cloud-slashing treasure manual. Come to think of it, the cultivators of the cloud-slashing treasure manual must have dealt with the 4 major sections. Otherwise, the cloud-slashing treasure manual would not have such a reputation. The cloud-slashing power's engulfing ability left a deep impression on people. Almsgiver Chu, my temple will make it clear to everyone that you did not cultivate the cloud-slashing treasure manual, Fa Yuan said. Chu Li scoffed. Is this considered forgiveness? Making up for your mistakes? Fa Yuan smiled. You can say that. Thank you very much then. Chu Li secretly thought that dealing with smart people was so worry-free. He did not have to say it too clearly and Fa Yuan would know what to do. He changed the topic. Did Zhou Lingfeng's martial arts become stronger? Fa Yuan shook his head. He did not become stronger in the temple, but I can't say for sure when he leaves the temple. If he really joined the Divine Church of Azura, he might become even stronger. Chu Li slowly nodded. I understand. If it really doesn't work, we can only kill him and talk about it 18 years later. Don't kill him if you can, Fa Yuan said. As the 2 of them were talking, suddenly a shout was heard. Who is it? Chu Li sighed. They're here. Amitba. Fa Yuan chanted the name of Buddha, which resounded in the sky above the imperial residence of King An. The 2 men in blue robes who were fighting with the 4 protectors of the imperial residence of King An heard the name of Buddha and immediately left the 4 protectors behind. Like 2 wisps of smoke, they floated into the living room. The 4 protectors could not stop them in time. They had already entered the living room. Chu Li's voice floated into everyone's ears. All protectors, do not go near the living room. Perform your duties and do not leave your positions. Yes. Everyone shouted in a deep voice. Zhou Lingfeng and the other middle-aged man landed in the living room. They looked at Chu Li and Fa Yuan calmly. Chu Li looked at Zhou Lingfeng. His appearance did not change much. He was still skinny and thin, but his temperament was different. He was as calm as water and did not have the ferocious aura he had before. He looked harmless. The other middle-aged man had a round face. He looked kind and friendly. He looked at Chu Li and Fa Yuan with a smile. Chu Li turned his head and said, Looks like his cultivation level has improved greatly. We're in trouble. Fa Yuan chanted the name of Buddha. His expression was solemn. He slowly nodded. Almsgiver Chu, if it really doesn't work, we can only kill them. Chapter 587. P.S. I came back late, I clenched my teeth and wrote a chapter. I'm so sorry I can't write the next chapter, I'm so ashamed. Chu Li looked at Zhou Lingfeng, we meet again. Zhou Lingfeng looked at Chu Li calmly. I have to thank you, Chu Li. Chu Li smiled. What are you thanking me for? If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have joined the Divine Church. I wouldn't have obtained true peace and freedom, Zhou Lingfeng said. True peace? What is true peace? Chu Li asked. Knowing where you come from and where you're going. That's why you're fearless and you know how to obtain peace of mind so you won't be bothered by killing. Chu Li was surprised. You can control your urge to kill? I don't have to. Zhou Lingfeng shook his head and said, Why do we need to restrain ourselves? As Azura, we treat humans as prey. Killing is part of our nature, there is no need to restrain ourselves. Chu Li looked at him, and then at the round-faced middle-aged man. The round-faced man nodded. Brother Zhou is right. We've cultivated the Azura power technique, and achieved the body of Azura. We're no longer humans but Azura. Even after we die, we'll enter the Azura world and continue to fight. Killing more people in this world will benefit us in the future. He said all this with a smile, as if he was talking about a trivial matter. Chu Li felt a chill down his spine and glared at Fa Yuan. Fa Yuan chanted, Amitabha Buddha. Chu Li said, if the Tempest Temple doesn't do anything, it'll be a disaster. I'll tell Masters Junior and the others personally. Almsgiver Chu, we need to restrain them, Fa Yuan said slowly. Chu Li nodded, of course. Other than killing me, is there anyone else you want to kill? We're not here to kill you. We're here to enlighten you and make you one of us. The round-faced man shook his head and smiled. Chu Li smiled. I want to become an Azura too. Chu Li, you're a genius. Such a genius should belong to Azura. The round-faced man smiled kindly. Brother Zhou is willing to give up his killing intent for the Divine Church and allow you to join Azura. You should thank him. Chu Li replied, I don't want to join Azura. Don't think about it now. Once you join us, you'll understand our good intentions. The round-faced middle-aged man sighed and said, only by becoming an Azura can one be truly free and live as one pleases. One will no longer need to be bound by the various restraints of the secular world and be free. Chu Li shook his head. How can there be true freedom? I'll just be a person who suffers, but I have to thank you for your favor. Then we can only lend you a hand. The round-faced middle-aged man smiled and said, you will be grateful to us in the future. Zhou Lingfeng said, Chu Li, there are disciples from the fairies' capital who have entered the E-Public House's territory and started a massacre. They will do it in your name, and you will become a sinner of the E-Public House. You will only be protected if you join the Church of Divine Light. Chu Li frowned. The Divine Church of Azura really thinks highly of me. Our divine sect doesn't treat everyone like this. You're a talented man favored by the sect leader. The round-faced middle-aged man smiled and said, after becoming an Azura, with your qualifications, you have the chance to become an Azura king. Chu Li asked, where is the Divine Church starting the massacre in the E-Public House? He stared at Zhou Lingfeng and the round-faced man. Zhou Lingfeng did not know, but the round-faced man knew that Chu Li had read the location from his mind. Fortunately, the Divine Church of Azura was further away from the E-Public House than from the fairies' capital. When the two of them arrived, the people from the Divine Church of Azura should not have reached the E-Public House yet. There was still a chance to save them. He turned his head and smiled. Fa Yuan, you see, I'm still popular. Almsgiver Chu's talent in martial arts is extremely high. No wonder the Divine Church of Azura is interested in you. Fa Yuan smiled and said, Almsgiver Chu, do you have any ideas? He did not think that the people from the fairies' capital would be so vicious to force Chu Li to join them. A normal person would not be able to withstand such pressure. Chu Li said, you're fighting against two people, can you hold them back? I can try, Fa Yuan said. Chu Li nodded. That's good. Hold them back, I'll be right back. Fa Yuan chanted the name of Buddha and lightly pointed two fingers at the round-faced man and Zhou Lingfeng. Zhou Lingfeng said in a low voice, be careful of his finger energy. The round-faced man nodded. On the way here, he had heard from Zhou Lingfeng that the Tempest Temple had a unique study, the petrifying finger. Fa Yuan was the youth champion of the Tempest Temple at such a young age. He was proficient in the petrifying finger. They had thought of enlightening Fa Yuan before but gave up on the idea. For Fa Yuan to be able to cultivate to this level, he must have a very deep understanding of Buddhism. Those who had a deep understanding of Buddhism would definitely resist the Divine Church of Azura. There was no need to waste energy, they could just kill him. The two of them turned into two wisps of smoke and circled around Fa Yuan, looking for an opportunity. Fa Yuan's hands were pointing here and there. It was either the spear finger or the petrifying finger. The finger energy condensed into a net and protected him. The two of them were afraid and did not dare to get close. Zhu Tianhua landed on the roof and laid on the green tiles. His tall and burly body seemed to have completely merged with the roof. It was impossible to tell them apart, but it was a kind of special technique. He saw Tianshu courtyard and Xiao Shi, who was in the middle of the courtyard. Xiao Shi was wearing a white gown and was admiring the green bamboos in the courtyard. She would occasionally go up to take a closer look. Her movements were light and graceful. Every frown and smile was beautiful beyond compare. Zhu Tianhua was dazzled and could not look away. He felt that Xiao Shi was the best gift that God had given to the world. All the beauty of a woman was concentrated on her body and pushed the beauty of a woman to the extreme. He could not think of anyone who was more beautiful than her. Suddenly, a shadow floated into Tianshu courtyard. This person was like a shadow. He was silent and did not alert any protectors. If he did not personally look over here, he would not have noticed this person's intrusion. He did not make a sound and floated down. He stood in front of the shadow and protected Xiao Shi behind him. Xiao Shi's expression did not change. She stood behind Zhu Tianhua and asked, "Can you defeat him?" Zhu Tianhua shook his head. "Princess, please enter the house first. I will handle this." "Be careful," Xiao Shi said. "To be able to sneak in without a sound is definitely not an ordinary master. If you can't defeat him, run. Don't force yourself." "Yes," Zhu Tianhua said in a deep voice. He sized up the middle-aged man in front of him. His body was thin and his appearance was average. He stood in the crowd and did not attract any attention. His gaze was clear. He did not look fierce or murderous, but it made Zhu Tianhua's hair stand on end. The middle-aged man saw that Xiao Shi was about to enter the house and suddenly shot over. Zhu Tianhua's light body technique was excellent. He once again blocked in front of Xiao Shi and struck with his palm. Bang! The middle-aged man took the hit head-on. Zhu Tianhua staggered 2 steps. He knew he was no match for him. He sighed to himself. Where did this master come from? How could he be so powerful? He clenched his teeth and struck with his fist. He wanted to hold this guy back and wait for the head chief to come over. You overestimate yourself," the middle-aged man grunted. He suddenly swept past Zhu Tianhua and shot towards the door. Zhu Tianhua blocked in front of him again. Chapter 588. Zhu Tianhua felt his mind tremble and the sky changed color. He could not imagine what would happen if this guy barged into the princess's room. Would the princess lose her life? Thinking that such a beautiful princess was about to die, he was filled with endless fear and anger. Bang! His body suddenly expanded and his hair stood up like needles. His robe fluttered like a ball and he shot into the room like a flash of lightning. The middle-aged man was reaching out to grab Xiao Shi. Xiao Shi looked at him calmly without any fear. This made him angry and annoyed as if he had become a clown. Suddenly, he felt a sense of danger coming from behind him. He turned his head to receive the punch. Bang! The middle-aged man staggered backward. The fists collided and the force was turbulent. Crash! The vase on the table flew out of the window. The zither flew out but got stuck in the window and made a muffled sound. 2 wooden stools hit the wall and made a muffled sound. Zhu Tianhua was afraid that the middle-aged man would turn around and hurt Xiao Shi. He ignored his surging blood and rushed forward again. Bam 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 bam, a series of muffled sounds could be heard. Xiao Shi retreated into the bedroom, which made Zhu Tianhua feel relieved. He was still worried that the middle-aged man would rush into the bedroom and he might not be able to stop him. A grandmaster can kill in an instant. His heart was anxious and Zhu Tianhua attacked wildly without caring about anything else. The middle-aged man's cultivation level was higher than Zhu Tianhua's, but Zhu Tianhua had unleashed his secret technique and was attacking madly without fear of death. He was fighting with his life on the line, so the middle-aged man could not do anything to him. He was entangled with Zhu Tianhua and could not escape, so he could not take Xiao Shi down. Zhu Tianhua's heart was filled with rage and hatred. He wanted to kill this middle-aged man. Unfortunately, no matter how violent his inner energy was, he could not completely gain the upper hand against the middle-aged man. This made Zhu Tianhua even angrier. He hated himself for being so weak, but he also hated this middle-aged man. In his rage, his originally violent strength increased again and pressured the middle-aged man to retreat. Good, forcing me to use my ultimate skill. The middle-aged man was also furious. He was obviously weaker than him, but he was the one being pressured. This was intolerable, and he decided to use his secret skill. His originally skinny body suddenly shrunk and became even skinnier, like a bamboo pole. His face was like a skeleton, and his eyes were cold and emotionless. Pooh! A finger force shot out soundlessly. Taking advantage of the moment when he was transforming, it landed lightly on his body, giving off a dull thud. The middle-aged man froze. Zhu Tianhua had been waiting for the enemy long ago. He knew that this move of his would be shockingly powerful. Seeing that he had slowed down, Zhu Tianhua did not have much time to think. He instinctively threw out a punch. Bang! The middle-aged man flew out and hung on the wall. Zhu Tianhua was shocked. He did not expect this result. He subconsciously threw a punch with all his strength, but he didn't expect that it would actually send the middle-aged man flying. Seeing that the middle-aged man was about to move, he hurriedly threw out another punch. Bang! The middle-aged man trembled again, and his body sank into the wall. The carved wall was crushed by his body and cracks started to appear. Zhu Tianhua could not care less about Xiao Shi's house, and threw another punch. Bam, 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 bam. Zhu Tianhua's punches rained down on the middle-aged man like a torrential downpour. The force of his punches spread in all directions, not giving the middle-aged man any time to catch his breath. What? The middle-aged man spat out a mouthful of blood. Zhu Tianhua dodged to the side and followed up with another punch. He was shocked. This guy's body seemed like it was made of iron. No matter how he hit it, it would not break. Logically, after taking so many punches, his tendons and bones should have been broken, and his body should have become a pile of mud. In the end, it was still very sturdy. There was a faint elasticity coming from the fist force, and it could counterattack at any time. The middle-aged man suddenly raised his head and widened his eyes. A ferocious murderous aura rushed towards him, scaring Zhu Tianhua. Zhu Tianhua was enraged and punched even more crazily. After a series of punches, the middle-aged man still did not show any signs of softening. His body was still as sturdy as before, and it contained a rebounding force. The punches landed on his head, shoulders, and chest, but they were blocked by an invisible force. No matter how hard he hit, his inner force could not penetrate. He simply stopped using his fist force and threw out a punch. Bang! The middle-aged man suddenly extended his hand and grabbed his fist. Pain came from his fist. The middle-aged man's palm strength was extraordinary. His fist felt like it was about to be crushed, and he could feel his bones slowly breaking and shattering. Zhu Tianhua gritted his teeth and threw another punch. The middle-aged man reached out his other hand and grabbed Zhu Tianhua's fist again. Both fists landed on his hand, and an intense pain came from his fist, as if it was about to shatter. Zhu Tianhua gritted his teeth and kicked out. Bang! The middle-aged man stretched out his leg, and the 2 feet collided. Zhu Tianhua felt as if he had kicked an iron rock. His toes were about to crack. Hee. The middle-aged man grinned, as if he wanted to devour him. Zhu Tianhua felt goosebumps all over his body. He was furious at his own cowardice. He did not care about the pain in his legs and kicked continuously. After a few kicks, he became numb. Pooh! Another muffled sound rang out from the middle-aged man's body. Zhu Tianhua only felt that his fists had suddenly become lighter. His hands that were clenching his fists loosened a little. Zhu Tianhua was overjoyed. Once again, he followed his instincts and attacked. His fists pierced directly into the middle-aged man's temples. Bang! The middle-aged man's body swayed slightly. Zhu Tianhua followed up with another move of dual wind-piercing ears, piercing both of the middle-aged man's ears. The middle-aged man staggered, as if he was about to fall from the wall. However, Zhu Tianhua could not allow him to fall. He fiercely punched the man's chest. His fist was still in intense pain. It was obvious that he was injured, but he could not care less. Pooh! The middle-aged man spat out another mouthful of blood. Chu Li's voice rang out from inside. His chest is his weakness. Head chief? Zhu Tianhua was startled. Then, he hurriedly struck the middle-aged man's chest again. Pooh! The middle-aged man spat out another mouthful of blood. He shook his head, as if he was a little more awake. Pooh! Another muffled sound rang out from his body. Zhu Tianhua's spirit was lifted. He knew that the man was unlucky again and could not move. So, he crazily struck the man's chest. After spitting out another 2 mouthfuls of blood, the middle-aged man finally became dispirited. Chu Li came out of the bedroom. Xiao Shi followed beside him. Head chief. Zhu Tianhua knew that the head chief was helping him. This middle-aged man could not move after a few pu sounds. It was very likely that he was plotted against by the head chief. Zhu Tianhua had taken advantage of him. Chu Li nodded his head in satisfaction. Zhu Tianhua, you've blocked the assassination attempt on the princess. You've done a great job. You'll be rewarded after this. Seal this guy's acupuncture point. Seal it every 15 minutes. Yes, Zhu Tianhua said excitedly. He looked at Xiao Shi. Xiao Shi let out a slight smile. Protector Zhu, you have done very well this time. Zhu Tianhua instantly beamed with joy. Princess, you are flattering me. Chu Li turned his head and said, Let Zhu Tianhua protect you. I will go and take a look. Okay. Xiao Shi said, Kill him if you need to. Chu Li revealed a smile. He nodded and disappeared in a flash. Xiao Shi frowned and looked at the middle-aged man on the wall. She scoffed and said, Teach him a lesson. Yes. Zhu Tianhua smiled. He was a little embarrassed. Princess. Xiao Shi waved her hand and said, If you care about these things, I would have died a long time ago. I don't blame you. I can only blame this guy for hiding in the house. Thank you, Princess. Zhu Tianhua said. Xiao Shi glared at him. I should be the one thanking you. Stop talking and get him out. Chapter 589. P.S. People who don't have a draft are so unfortunate. If anything happens, it'll be troublesome. I'm trying my best not to delay the update. Chu Li returned to the main hall in a flash. Fa Yuan formed a net of finger energy to protect himself. Zhou Lingfeng and the other round-faced man were helpless. They were furious that they couldn't take him down. When they saw Chu Li, Zhou Lingfeng and the round-faced man knew that they had lost their advantage. They had to fight a tough battle. Chu Li said lightly, You guys come and keep us busy. Then send someone to capture the princess and force me to give in. Good idea. Not bad. Unfortunately, Fa Yuan is here. He's so hard to deal with. He ruined our plan. Zhou Lingfeng said in a low voice. Chu Li smiled. What a great plan. I wonder how you guys will threaten me after capturing the princess? There are many ways. I'm not afraid that you won't give in. Zhou Lingfeng said. The round-faced man used his palm to deflect Fa Yuan's finger energy. He shook his head and said, I didn't expect you to be so lucky. How's the situation over there? Since Chu Li called out, he naturally went there. If he came back, it meant that the situation was not good. Chu Li said, I've caught him. Caught him? Impossible. You can't catch Brother Qi. The round-faced man shook his head and smiled. Chu Li smiled. I asked a protector to seal his acupuncture points every 15 minutes. How could he escape? Vicious. The round-faced man frowned. Sealing acupuncture points every 15 minutes. Even the body of Azura could not escape. Even if he had the ability to change his acupuncture points, he would not be able to hide from his opponent. As such, the body of Azura could not be used to its full potential. It could be considered as being completely controlled. Chu Li said, "Other than him, is there anyone else?" "No one else." The round-faced man shook his head and sighed. "There's no need for so many people. I didn't expect Fa Yuan to be here. That's why the plan didn't work." Chu Li laughed. "Is there really no one else? Then I won't hold back. The people who sneaked in from the backyard aren't your people, right?" "No." The round-faced man shook his head. Chu Li scoffed, "That's good. If they're not the body of Azura, just kill them." As soon as he finished speaking, he disappeared in a flash. Zhou Lingfeng looked at the round-faced man. The round-faced man shook his head. Fa Yuan shook his head and said, "It is not wise to lie in front of almsgiver Chu." The round-faced middle-aged man said, "Monk Fa Yuan, we are not interested in you. Why do you want to get involved in this mess? Why don't you leave quickly? I heard that Chu Li also has a grudge against the Tempest Temple." Fa Yuan smiled. "Almsgiver, you don't have to worry too much. Both of you will have to stay today. I will bring you back to the temple." "Hee hee." Zhou Lingfeng laughed coldly. He hated the fact that he was suppressed by the Tempest Temple. Whenever this matter was brought up, he would be filled with hatred and murderous intent towards the Tempest Temple. Other than killing Chu Li, the disciples of the Tempest Temple were the people he wanted to kill. Now that he had finally encountered a good opportunity, he did not want to let it go. Thinking of this, he suddenly took a deep breath. All the flesh and blood in his body seemed to be sucked into his bones, leaving only his skin wrapped around his bones. His flesh and blood were gone, and he looked like a skeleton. His eyes were glowing red, devoid of any emotion. "Brother Zhou," the round-faced man called out worriedly. He did not expect Zhou Lingfeng to use the secret skill so early. He had not even dealt with Chu Li yet. Zhou Lingfeng wanted to kill Chu Li, but he also wanted to kill Fa Yuan. If he could not kill Chu Li, it would be the same if he killed Fa Yuan first. Hence, Zhou Lingfeng sighed helplessly and used his secret skill, instantly turning into a skeleton. The eyes of the two skeletons were glowing red. It was eerie and scary. Fa Yuan sighed. These two people's cultivation level was extremely high. He might not be able to defeat them. The Azura Power Technique's secret skill could tell the depth of their cultivation level. If the eyes were glowing red, then it was the 6th level of the Azura Power Technique. If the eyes were glowing green, then it was the 7th level of the Azura Power Technique. If the eyes were glowing blue, then it was the 8th level, and if the eyes were glowing purple, then it was the 9th level. If one really met an Azura that was glowing purple, anyone below the enlightened mastery would definitely die. Only Chu Li, who had the god's limbs, would have a chance of escaping. Thinking of this, he was a little worried. If there was really someone who had perfected the Azura Power Technique, then it would be a disaster for all living beings in the world. The world would be in chaos. It would be a catastrophe for all living beings who knew how many people would die. Amitabha Buddha. Fa Yuan chanted the name of Buddha, his expression solemn. The sky seemed to be filled with the sound of Sanskrit. It was faintly discernible. A faintly discernible golden light emanated from Fa Yuan's body. It was like fog or smoke. His face seemed to be illuminated by a layer of golden light. All emotions were hidden in his eyes. There was only compassion to observe all things. He lightly pressed his palms forward, the golden light flashing. Hum! There seemed to be Sanskrit sounds in his palms. It gently welcomed the two people. Bam! The two people's eyes flashed red. They stared at him hesitantly. The two people looked down at their palms. A golden palm print appeared in the center of their palms. It was unbearably hot. It was as if they were being burned by a soldering iron. Waves of scorching energy gushed out from the palm print, rushing into their bodies. It disrupted the circulation of the Azura Power Technique. The two people looked at each other, then rushed forward again. Fa Yuan calmly extended his palms, pressing towards the two people amidst the faint Sanskrit sounds. The two people's body techniques were extremely fast, like a gust of wind. They circled behind him. When the right palm hit his back, there was a flash in front of their eyes. Fa Yuan had already turned around. His palms met. Hum! The Sanskrit sounds floated from the palms again. The two people could not avoid it. They could only meet the right palm. Bam! The two people were hit and took 2 steps back. They looked at their right palms hesitantly. The golden palm print deepened. A few degrees of scorching energy gushed into their bodies. In an instant, their bodies were steaming hot. It was as if they were in a steamer. Chu Li appeared in the backyard in a flash. He landed in front of an old man. This was an old man with a protruding mouth and ape-like cheeks. He was short. It was impossible to tell that he knew martial arts. He seemed to have taken a wrong turn. He came to the back door of the imperial residence. He looked around curiously. Chu Li's sudden appearance seemed to have shocked him. He stopped in his tracks. He looked at Chu Li in shock. Chu Li smiled. He slowly pulled out the modesty sword. He could clearly see the situation in the main hall. As the number 1 person in the younger generation of the Tempest Temple, the antique studies that Fa Yuan had were not just a few. The Tempest Temple had hundreds of antique martial arts. Any one of them was a top-notch antique study. Chu Li had long been envious of them. He wanted to secretly learn them whenever he had the chance. He had never seen the secret skill that Fa Yuan displayed before. It was different from the 3 monks from the Exorcist Academy. It was even more dazzling and powerful. The palm force was condensed and did not dissipate. It was directly attached to the palm print and attacked continuously. In this way, being hit by his palm was equivalent to being injured, continuously wearing down the other party. Chu Li did not know what kind of palm technique this was, but he could clearly see the path of circulation, imprinting it in his mind. Chapter 590. P.S. I will not be able to update in time, but I will try my best to update at 6 p.m. What are you doing? The shifty-eyed middle-aged man yelled. I just want to borrow the road. Can't I take a walk? Chu Li's modesty sword swayed. Don't lie in front of a real person. You can hide your Grandmaster's cultivation level to this extent and hide it from the Imperial House high officials. That's impressive. Who's a Grandmaster? Who's a Grandmaster? The man scoffed. I don't know what you're talking about. Does your family own this place and I can't even walk around? Isn't that too overbearing? The Imperial residence of King and isn't the Imperial House. Can't I even pass by? Chu Li could not help but laugh. Looking at Chu Li's expression, he still had the thought that Chu Li was testing him. The Divine Church of Azura is really impressive. To be able to cultivate the Azura power technique to this level without affecting your mind, I'm impressed. Chu Li shook his head. This man's Azura power technique was quite profound. He was not in a hurry to help Fa Yuan. He wanted to see what other secret skills Fa Yuan had. Zhou Lingfeng and Xiao Xiao's strange appearance made him cautious. Seeing Fa Yuan's thoughts, he knew that they had already entered the 6th level. The man in front of him was probably not at the 6th level yet. He was about the same level as the one who went to capture Xiaoshi. The Divine Church of Azura really thought highly of him. They sent 2 6th level to deal with him, while the other 2 5th level to act in secret. The most impressive thing was that the Divine Church of Azura had the same heart technique as the Holy Church of Light to hide their cultivation level. They could hide their cultivation level and enter the fairies' capital safely. This was obviously a technique that was specifically targeted at the Imperial House high officials. If this continued, the fairies' capital would be in chaos. These thoughts only flashed through his mind for a moment. The shifty-eyed man scoffed. What Azura power technique? Chu Li's sword suddenly appeared in front of his throat. The man wanted to dodge, but the sword was already at his throat. Chu Li smiled. What are you doing? The man's face stiffened. He said, You're mistaken. I really don't know martial arts. Just as he was about to channel to evade, he realized that it was too late. Chu Li's sword was too fast. It seemed like the information from the Divine Church mentioned that Chu Li's swordsmanship was exquisite, but he did not expect his sword to be so fast, faster than his reaction. Even if he had the intention, he would not have been able to dodge this sword. Thinking of this, he was secretly shocked. It seemed like he was going to fail today. Fortunately, he did not know his purpose. Since he didn't have time to circulate his energy, he might as well play it to the end. Chu Li's face immediately darkened. He sneered, You want to start a massacre? He could read from the middle-aged man's mind that the man's goal was to start a massacre and mess up his mind. That way, he would not keep an eye on Xiao Shi and increase his comrade's chances of success. From his point of view, as long as he held Xiao Shi hostage, everything would be fine. He could be beaten or scolded, and he would not resist. The people of Azura Power Technique felt that Chu Li had deep feelings for Xiao Shi and would definitely sacrifice himself to save her. In this way, Chu Li would become a follower of the Divine Church of Azura, a member of the church, and help the church spread its might throughout the world. As for killing some people, it was a matter of course. If he didn't kill people, how could he be considered an Azura? The middle-aged man shouted, What nonsense are you talking about? He was in a panic. This Chu Li lived up to his name. He could actually see through his thoughts. Could there really be such a smart person in this world? He could not forget that the bishop favored him so much and wanted to recruit him into the church. Chu Li shook his head. His sword flashed. TSS, 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 TSS. With a light whistle, the modesty sword sliced through the middle-aged man's limbs. The middle-aged man could not help but scream and fell to the ground. The tendons on both his arms and legs were broken. Chu Li sheathed his sword and immediately went forward to seal his acupuncture point. He carried him and fluttered to the courtyard beside Tianshu Courtyard. Zhu Tianhua, Lu Xing and the other three were looking at the middle-aged man from before. When they saw Chu Li carrying another one, they were shocked. Head chief, there are more? Chu Li said, There are 2 more. The few of you keep an eye on them. Their physiques are strong. If you are not careful, they will recover. Seal their acupuncture points carefully. Yes. The 4 quickly nodded in response. Chu Li left the middle-aged man behind. His body flashed and appeared beside Fa Yuan. Fa Yuan's expression was solemn. His body was surrounded by a golden light. Buddhist chants could be faintly heard from his palms. He stood beside Chu Li with a calm mind. There was not the slightest trace of hostility. It was indeed the antique study of the Tempest Temple. Zhou Feng and Lu Xing were like 2 skeletons. Their eyes emitted red light. Their bodies were skinny but their movements were extremely fast. They were like lightning that Chu Li could not see their figures clearly. Fa Yuan's movements were leisurely and slow, but he was always able to block the 2's palm energy. The Shura palm did not seem to have any power to fight back against his palm technique. As palm after palm collided, the palm prints on Zhou Feng and Lu Xing's palms became clearer. The palm energy that gushed out from the palm prints became purer and thicker. It managed to offset half of their palm energy. When Fa Yuan's next palm hit, with the palm energy from the palm prints, the power of the 2 was added together. It became stronger and stronger. With every additional palm, the power increased. Although the 2 were as fast as lightning, they could not escape from Fa Yuan's palm range. He was always able to block the palm energy and suppress their counterattack. Chu Li praised, Good palm technique. Fa Yuan said, Almsgiver Chu, this is our temple's 1000 Buddha palm. Chu Li sighed, Your temple has quite a lot of antique studies. Let me take care of one. All right, Fa Yuan said calmly. Chu Li's sword flashed and instantly pierced towards Zhou Feng's eyes. Zhou Lingfeng retreated quickly. Chu Li did not stop and chased after him. Zhou Lingfeng kept retreating while striking the tip of the sword. When Zhou Lingfeng retreated from the main hall, Chu Li's sword caught up to him and pierced through his right palm. The tip of the sword came out from the back of his palm. Zhou Lingfeng did not care and struck out with his left palm. Chu Li pulled out his sword again. The tip of the sword pierced through his left palm again and came out from the back of his palm. Zhou Lingfeng frowned, but he did not care that his palms were pierced. He continued to strike as if he did not pierce through his own palms. Chu Li's sword flashed like lightning. Zhou Lingfeng's movements seemed to be slowed down by 2 beats under his sword. One strike after another, after a few strikes, Zhou Lingfeng's palms had been pierced through 5 times. His bones were exposed. His bones were extremely hard. The modesty sword could cut through iron like mud, but it could not break his bones. Chu Li frowned. The body of Azura was indeed mysterious. It was unusual for his bones to be this hard. The tip of his sword pierced through Zhou Lingfeng's palms or his shoulders. After a while, Zhou Lingfeng's arms could no longer move. His shoulders were pierced by the tip of the sword. It almost broke his tendons. Chu Li suddenly increased his speed. The tip of the sword instantly sliced through several places and broke the tendons in his arms and legs. Zhou Lingfeng fell to the ground. His eyes were red as he stared at Chu Li. There was no hatred or pain. There was no expression on his face. Chu Li picked him up and sent him to Zhu Tianhua. He asked them to keep an eye on him and seal his acupuncture points at any time. He had already escaped twice last time. When he arrived at the main hall, Fa Yuan had already defeated the middle-aged man and returned to his normal state. Fa Yuan, thank you, Chu Li said. If it was not for Fa Yuan, he would have to spend a lot of effort. Fa Yuan pressed his palms together. Almsgiver Chu, I will bring them back to the temple to be suppressed. Chu Li smiled. You still want to suppress them? Fa Yuan said, this is the temple's responsibility. All right. Chu Li nodded. I will leave them to you. Follow me. Chapter 591. Fa Yuan followed Chu Li out of the main hall. The sun was shining brightly outside. Chu Li faced the sun and looked at Fa Yuan's shiny bald head. Fa Yuan, you secretly let go of the guy you subdued. Let go? Fa Yuan was puzzled. Chu Li said, he has the highest position among the 4. Letting one go will cause endless trouble in the future. I don't know how many more people will be killed. Almsgiver Chu, how can you bear to let innocent people die just because you let him go? Fa Yuan frowned. Chu Li glared at him snappily. Fa Yuan pondered. Is Almsgiver Chu trying to find their lair? He knew that Chu Li had cultivated 2 divine powers, the god's limbs and the all-seeing divine power. Chu Li's motive for letting this person go was obvious. The Tempest Temple knows where the divine church's lair is? Chu Li asked. Fa Yuan slowly shook his head. I don't know. If it doesn't work, I'll be the one to interrogate him. The best idea is to let him go and I'll follow him secretly. I'm sure he'll report back to the Divine Church of Azura. Chu Li said. Fa Yuan frowned and shook his head. Almsgiver Chu, this is too dangerous. Chu Li smiled. I didn't expect you to be so concerned about me. I thought the Tempest Temple wanted me dead. Times have changed. Why don't you let go of the past? Fa Yuan smiled. Chu Li scoffed. I've let it go, but I'm afraid you won't. This is dangerous, but it can't be helped. I can't just leave them alone and let them kill as they please, can I? Since the Divine Church of Azura had their eyes on him, they would not let him go easily. They would find ways to force him to submit. If he wanted to get rid of them, he would have to destroy them before they could. Unfortunately, the Divine Church of Azura was not so easy to destroy. Otherwise, the Tempest Temple would not be so helpless. According to the information we received, the Divine Church of Azura has someone who has cultivated the 9th level of the Azura power technique. If I were to encounter the 9th level of the Azura power technique, I will definitely die. Fa Yuan's expression was solemn as he sighed. Why didn't the enlightened master from your temple make a move? Chu Li frowned. At this time, you still have to be cautious and let him do as he pleases? Fa Yuan shook his head. When an enlightened master makes a move, the karma involved is huge. We need to be extremely careful. It's not something that someone of my level can know. Chu Li said, if I find the location of the Divine Church of Azura, will the temple believe me? Fa Yuan hesitated for a moment and finally let out a sigh. Chu Li smiled. It seems that your temple is still wary of me. I'll do it myself. If you can't let him go, I'll interrogate him first. What can almsgiver Chu find out from the interrogation? Fa Yuan said, they are extremely determined, it will be very difficult to get any information out of them. Chu Li said, I'm the best at this. I don't have to worry about him not spitting. All right. Fa Yuan nodded slowly. He really didn't want to let go of that middle-aged man just now. This man's martial arts were extremely high, and he was also very intelligent. If he really let him go, it would be very difficult to catch him next time. Who knew how many people he would kill? Chu Li also understood his concerns and did not force him. If he let him go, he was not confident that he could catch him again. If he really killed again, it would be his fault. He came to the main hall and stood in front of the round-faced middle-aged man. With his acupuncture points sealed, the secret skill naturally stopped. The round-faced man returned to his original appearance. He was no longer a skeleton, but there was still no killing intent. Chu Li released a few of his acupuncture points and looked down at him. You guys failed this time. Will you come again? We might not fail. The round-faced man looked at Chu Li calmly. We might not succeed here, but the E-Public House will definitely succeed. Chu Li said, where in the E-Public House they are going to attack you should know, right? I don't. The round-faced man shook his head. I'm just following orders, I don't know anything else. Chu Li looked at him calmly. Then where is the Divine Church you should know, right? I don't. The round-faced man shook his head. Chu Li tilted his head and looked at him. You really are stubborn. The round-faced man said, Chu Li, why do you have to be so ruthless? You will be a member of the Divine Church sooner or later, and we will be comrades in the future. Don't you leave a way out for yourself? Chu Li said, you guys don't leave a way out for me. How can I leave a way out? How many people are there in the Divine Church? It's boring to tell you. We have 119 people. We are just short of you to reach 120 people. The round-faced man said. Chu Li smiled. You really think highly of me? I don't believe it. How can there be so many people who cultivate the Azura power technique in this world? Not just the Great Ji dynasty, but even in the 5 nations there won't be so many. The round-faced man said lightly, it's not difficult to enter the Azura power technique. But there aren't many people who have obtained the Azura power technique, right? Chu Li glanced at Fa Yuan. The Tempest Temple has banned this technique, how can it be spread? Hee. The round-faced man looked at Fa Yuan in disdain. The Tempest Temple is the leader of the 4 major sects, but not everyone has to listen to them. If we want to cultivate it, we can. No one can stop us. Chu Li frowned. Fa Yuan, looks like there's a traitor in the Tempest Temple. Don't tell me it's your doing? In his eyes, the Tempest Temple was a lunatic. In order to study martial arts, they would do anything. Deep down, they were the same as the Titanium Temple. Everything was an illusion, and everything was empty. They said they were merciful, but they did not really care about the people of the world. Fa Yuan said, it's definitely not my temple. Chu Li scoffed. That's not necessarily true. You just don't know. 119 people, how many of them are above the 6th level? 20. The round-faced man said. Chu Li sighed. Above the 6th level. This is really troublesome. The round-faced man said coldly, Chu Li, you should know that those above the 6th level are the masters of the Grandmaster's boundary. It's not something you can handle alone. Even if you combine the masters of the High Duke's public house and King An's imperial residence, you still won't be able to stop us. Chu Li was silent. He turned his head and said, Fa Yuan, in my opinion, after they enter the temple, don't talk about mercy anymore. First, cripple their limbs or just cut them off. As long as they don't die, that's enough. The round-faced man sneered and turned his head away. Fa Yuan shook his head helplessly. This is the scary part of the body of Azura. It's no longer a normal human's body. The only weaknesses are the heart and head. If you cut off the limbs, they'll grow back. Chu Li raised his eyebrows. I only know that the tendons of the legs and hands can be regenerated. Can cutting off the limbs also regenerate? Yes, the body of Azura is almost indestructible. Fa Yuan sighed. This is also the reason why this technique was sealed. Chu Li nodded slowly. Can the sentient menace reach such a state when it's cultivated to its ultimate state? Fa Yuan said, the sentient menace can only be cultivated to perfection and become indestructible. Only then can it be on par with the body of Azura. However, the indestructible has no weaknesses and is far better than the body of Azura. Once the Azura power technique is cultivated to perfection, the body of Azura will have no weaknesses. No wonder the Tempest Temple was reluctant to destroy this technique. Chu Li shook his head and sighed. It's the result of greed. If the body of Azura can be combined with the sentient menace, then... Fa Yuan bowed with pressed palms. Chapter 592. P.S. Have I really reached my limit? I can't write any more no matter how hard I try. I can only write 5 chapters. In the evening, the sun was setting. In a small village on the Chongming Road, smoke curled up from the chimneys. The evening glow and smoke shrouded the small village. The sounds of dogs barking, roosters crowing, tired birds returning to the forest, adults shouting, and children playing were mixed together, forming a lively picture, full of the joy of life. This small village called Lijia Village was peaceful and quiet. Zhao Shang and He Ju were 2 middle-aged men, handsome and extraordinary. Their bodies were thin and tall, like 2 wisps of smoke. They slowly approached the village by sticking close to the treetop. The 2 stopped on the treetops halfway up the hill, looking down at the people in the village. Some were busy cooking, some were busy dragging mischievous children home, beating and scolding them at the same time. The children's cries could be heard throughout the village. Brother Zhao, when do we start? He Ju glanced at the village and said expressionlessly, now or midnight? It's a little troublesome to start now. Zhao Shang glanced at the people in the village and said calmly, it'll be noisy if we kill them, it'll be too noisy. Why don't we do it at night, when everyone is asleep? We'll kill them silently. We won't let them suffer, they'll die peacefully in their sleep, and there won't be too much hostility this time. He, Brother Zhao is really thoughtful. He Ju laughed. Zhao Shang said lightly, I'm not thoughtful, I just don't have the heart. He Ju chuckled. Ever since he started cultivating the Azura power technique, he saw these people as different from his own kind. It was like seeing pheasants and hares, his hands itching to pounce on them. Even if he could not eat them, he still had the desire to hunt. Zhao Shang glanced at him and said lightly, You don't believe me? I do, He Ju quickly said. Zhao Shang said, No matter what, it's a life, it'll be a pity to just die like this. There's no other way, this is their fate. Everyone has their own destiny, they should die now. Even if we don't kill them, they'll meet with something else and lose their lives, right? He Ju said. Zhao Shang sighed. I didn't expect the bishop to give such an order, to kill for no reason. It's because of Chu Li, He Ju smiled. The chief of the public house, the head chief of King An's imperial residence, the Centurion of the Secret Guardians Hall. Just by listening to these titles, one would know how powerful he is. Humph, that's not the case at all, Zhao Shang said coldly. Think about it, the chief of the High Duke's public house might not be a problem, but the head chief of King An's imperial residence was only able to sit in that position because he was the chief of the High Duke's public house. Since he's the head chief of King An's imperial residence, of course, he would become an official in the Secret Guardians Hall. It would be easy for him to become a centurion. At the end of the day, it's only because of his connections. He's not as powerful as you think. That's true. He smiled. It's all thanks to the High Duke's public house. This time we can trap him to the end, pull out his roots, and cut off his path of retreat. He can only obediently join the God sect. That was a very powerful move, Zhao Shang said. The left guardian is very intelligent. She managed to grasp Chu Li's fatal weakness in an instant. After we destroy this village, we'll go and destroy another too. We'll make the public house angry. Hiju grinned and said, only anger can make them lose their rationality and attack Chu Li without hesitation. I don't know why the bishop values a young man so much. Zhao Shang scoffed. I heard that he's not even 20 years old. He's still wet behind the ears. What can he do? Hiju quickly said, the bishop is far-sighted. He must be buying a horse's bones with 1,000 gold pieces because of his fame. It's just because he's young. There are many people with his status. Why aren't they as famous as he is? Zhao Shang was even more dissatisfied. He sneered. No matter what you say, it's all fake. Hiju smiled. When he enters the God sect, he'll be a junior. I'll teach him a good lesson. Zhao Shang said faintly. I don't want others to say that I'm bullying a junior. Hiju said, this has nothing to do with you, Brother Zhao. I'll teach him a lesson and let him know how powerful he is. Let who know how powerful he is? Suddenly, a voice rang out from behind the two. Their faces changed. They turned around and saw a young man with an imposing appearance standing 10 steps away from them. His white robe fluttered in the wind and was dyed red by the sunset. His entire body was a rosy red, and he looked very gentle. However, the two did not feel gentle at all. Instead, they felt a chill in their hearts. They were bullied within 10 meters, and yet they did not realize it. Not only them, but their companions also did not realize it. It was not because they were careless. They really could not feel his approach. If it was an assassination, they would have been injured. Who are you? The two stared at Chu Li with gloomy faces and shouted in a deep voice. Chu Li stepped on the treetop. His white robe fluttered in the wind. He looked at the two of them. His heart was boiling with killing intent. However, he knew that he could not kill the two of them. If he were to throw them to the Tempest Temple to guard, it would be enough to make them suffer. He kept thinking if he should suppress them himself. In the end, he gave up on the idea. Although he had a formation and it was not a problem to trap them, he needed to send them food every day and be vigilant at all times. Otherwise, if they escaped, it would be a great sin. He still had to give them to the Tempest Temple. Jiang Kuai and Xueling were both in isolation to comprehend the Grandmaster's boundary. He did not know when they would return. Even if they returned, he could not leave such a task to them. It would be a waste of their talents, and they might not feel at ease. Chu Li looked at the two of them calmly. The Chu Li that you want to deal with? You are Chu Li. Zhao Shang looked at him and said faintly, you're just SOSO. Chu Li said, I have an undeserved reputation. I didn't expect you to remember me. If that's the case, there's no point in talking anymore. Let's do it. As soon as he finished speaking, he pressed his palm down and displayed the Shura palm. He appeared in front of them like a ghost and covered them with one palm each. Bang! The two of them could not dodge in time and hurriedly moved forward. A strange inner energy surged into their bodies. At first, the two of them did not care. The heart technique of the Azura power technique was strange. It was a combination of cold and heat. It was abnormally pure. Any invading inner energy would be melted. It was nothing to worry about. After a while, when they were about to attack, their expressions changed slightly. This strange inner energy swallowed the surrounding inner energy in the blink of an eye and grew rapidly. It had already hindered the smoothness and speed of the inner energy circulation. Chu Li's palms pressed down again. As the two of them hesitated, they lost the chance to dodge and face the palm again. Bang! 4 palms intersected. The two strange inner energies drilled into their bodies again and merged with the original inner energy. They grew stronger and their swallowing ability became stronger. The two of them turned around and left. They wanted to deal with the palm energy that was causing trouble in their bodies first. If they could not get rid of the internal problems, they would not be able to win against Chu Li. A white shadow flashed and Chu Li appeared in front of them. He stretched out his palm again. The two of them shot out diagonally, one on the left and one on the right. Chu Li chased behind Zhao Shang and pressed his palm on his back. Zhao Shang took a deep breath. Suddenly, his flesh was gone and he turned into a skeleton. His eyes were cold as he stretched out his palm. Chapter 593. P.S. The 22nd Alliance Leader has been born. The Alliance Leader is gentle and merciful. P.S. My monthly votes have increased by 1. Thank you all for your support. Zhao Shang felt that something was wrong. His inner energy was not flowing smoothly and his body became slower. Chu Li's palm came again like a ghost. Zhao Shang could not avoid it and could only meet it with his palm. Bang! With a muffled sound, Zhao Shang felt that his palm energy had entered Chu Li's body without any resistance. It was like an unguarded house. This feeling made him indescribably happy and his blood flow was smooth. However, after a while, he felt that his inner energy was like a broken dam. He could not control it no matter how hard he tried, and it kept entering Chu Li's body. It was not because Chu Li's body had a suction force, but because his palm energy was returning. Zhao Shang's inner energy was released by his palm and he no longer had any energy left to control Chu Li's huge palm energy. In the blink of an eye, his inner energy was gone. The body of Azura and the endless inner energy from the Grand Master's boundary allowed his inner energy to recover quickly, but it could not be replenished in an instant. Chu Li felt that the returning palm energy was 10 times stronger. It entered his body and he felt full. The heavenly demonic orb instantly swallowed it all. He followed up with another palm attack. Zhao Shang wanted to avoid it, but his body was heavy and his movements were slow. He could only watch as the palm hit his chest. Bang! With a muffled sound, his vision turned black and his mind fell into darkness. Chu Li smiled. It seemed that the cloud slashing power combined with the Shurapalm could increase the power of the Shurapalm to another level. He picked up Zhao Shang and disappeared in a flash. He-Ju's body was like a wisp of smoke, but he was extremely fast. The scenery in front of him flashed past. Trees rushed behind him one after another. The strong wind brushed against his face, but his heart was cold. He did not feel anything about killing people as he saw them as ants, but he felt something about his own death. He hated that his light body technique was not good enough and he could not get away from Chu Li quickly. As expected of someone favored by the bishop, he was no match for him. Since Chu Li did not chase after him, it was obvious that he went after Zhao Shang. Haha, no matter how powerful a person was, he would not like someone who spoke ill of him. In a situation like this, he could only choose to chase after one person. Naturally, he would kill the one who spoke ill of him. Thinking of this, he secretly felt a little proud. Zhao Shang's status was higher, and he was older. He had joined the cult before him, so he had to be humble in front of him. Otherwise, he would be scolded. The hierarchy in the church was very strict. When faced with his scolding, he could only listen obediently, but he could not talk back. Zhao Shang had said a bunch of bad things about Chu Li and looked down on him. Now it was time for retribution. Chu Li was going to hunt him down, so Zhao Shang decided to let him go. Zhao Shang had always been an eyesore to him. He pretended to be kind and benevolent, but when it came to killing, he was faster and more ruthless than anyone else. He said one thing and did another. He hated this kind of person the most. It was best if he died. As soon as he thought of this, he was inexplicably excited and smiled. The cultivators of the Azura power technique were filled with murderous intent and selfishness. They could not tolerate the existence of another Azura cultivator. Just like how a mountain could not contain two tigers, the cultivators of the Azura power technique saw the world as their hunting ground. Everyone was their prey, waiting to be slaughtered. They would not allow others to take their territory. This situation ended with the appearance of the Divine Church of Azura. The bishop was the natural ruler of Azura. They all obeyed him. They were limited by the rules of the church and suppressed their own nature. They did not kill each other, but the enmity deep in their hearts could not be erased. It was like it was flowing in their blood. He had been suppressing it, but now that it was released, he felt refreshed and happy. He turned his head to look and saw that no one was chasing after him. He became even happier and sped up. Unfortunately, the strange inner energy in his body was still growing. He had figured out the trick. As long as he did not fight it or provoke it, the inner energy that he devoured would not be much. Bam! He suddenly felt a sense of danger. He quickly turned his head and met Chu Li's right palm with his palm. A strange palm energy entered and merged with the originally calm strange palm energy. In an instant it grew stronger. The palm energy became active again. It continuously devoured the surrounding inner energy. In the blink of an eye, his inner energy was not flowing smoothly. He stepped back and avoided Chu Li. He did not want to meet Chu Li's palm again. Unfortunately, Chu Li was better. He appeared behind He Ju in an instant. He lifted Zhao Shang with one hand and slammed his palm down like a ghost. He Ju had no choice but to block it. He could not just watch as he was hit. Bam! He Ju suddenly felt his inner energy enter his opponent's body. Then, the inner energy rushed into Chu Li's body. It was Chu Li's original palm energy. It was 10 times stronger and was swallowed by the heavenly demonic orb. Chu Li experienced the benefits of the heavenly demonic orb. It was far from the 5th level but still far from the 6th. The difference between the 5th and 6th levels was huge. It was even bigger than the difference between the 1st and 5th levels. It seemed that he had to find more masters. He Ju felt empty. His inner energy could not keep up. He knew that he could not get away with it. His good mood was gone. It was as if he had fallen from the clouds into the mud. He suddenly shouted, "Wait!" Chu Li withdrew his Shura palm and looked at him. "What do you want to say?" "Let's make a deal. I will tell you what I know and you will let me go. How about that?" He Ju said. Chu Li was surprised. He did not expect the cultivators of the Azura power technique to have such a person. Those who cultivated the Azura power technique were all strong-willed people. If not, they would not be able to learn it. They would go mad and die. These people knew that they would reincarnate after death and eventually enter the world of Azura. They were not afraid of pain or death. That was why it was difficult to get information from them. Chu Li never thought that there would be such a person. "All right. But if you hide or give me false information, I will send you to the Tempest Temple to be imprisoned. I'm sure you can imagine how it feels." Chu Li said slowly. "Ask away. I will tell you everything I know." He Ju glanced at Zhao Shang. "Don't worry. He is unconscious. Where is the Church of God?" Chu Li asked. "Moonfall Peak beside the Tempest Temple. It is not far from the Tempest Temple." He Ju answered. "You have guts," Chu Li said. He Jew scoffed. The monks from the Tempest Temple are arrogant. They would never think that the Church of God would set up an altar there. Chu Li asked, "Who is the bishop?" "The bishop is Wu Jingyan, the emperor of all Asuras." He Jew answered. Chu Li asked, "How do you improve your cultivation level?" "Of course, by killing people. Asuras can only improve by killing people. There is no other shortcut. Even the bishop can't improve your cultivation level. Cultivation is a personal matter. How can we ask the bishop for help? What other positions are there below the bishop?" "Left and right guardians." "That's it. Who are the left and right guardians?" "The left guardian is Zhuo Ludao and the right guardian is Meng Luanfeng." "When was the Church of God established?" "I don't know. It seems like it has been a long time. But it has been kept quiet." "What is the purpose of establishing the Church?" "To protect ourselves and fight against the 4 major sects." "Who came up with the idea this time?" "The left guardian." "If you go back, what punishment will you receive?" "You are not allowed to kill for a month." "How do you kill people?" "Look for small factions in remote places or mountain villages. You don't pick on those who deserve to be killed." Chapter 594. Chu Li showed a helpless expression. He Jew quickly said, "Everything I said was the truth, not a single word of falsehood." Chu Li sighed and shook his head. "If you say that, how can I forgive you?" He Jew's face darkened and scoffed. "You want to break your promise?" Chu Li said, "If I let you go, wouldn't I be a sinner? You people kill people like it's child's play. Your hands are stained with the blood of too many innocent people. You should be punished. Even if you die 10 times, 20 times, it won't be enough to atone for your sins." He Jew scoffed. "Just like how a golden eagle wants to eat a rabbit, whether the rabbit is innocent or not, does the golden eagle deserve to die?" "You are humans," Chu Li scoffed. "You really think you are Asura?" "We are no longer mortals. We have cultivated the body of Asura and shed our mortal bodies. After we die, we become Asuras completely. We are Asuras now." He Jew shook his head. "Then I can only suppress you people." Chu Li shook his head. "Those who are not of my race must have different intentions." "I never thought that you, Chu Li, are a vile person who breaks your promise." He Jew scoffed. "What a waste of your reputation." Chu Li said, "If I let you go because of my reputation, then I am not human. You are the one who forced me to risk my life." He Jew clenched his teeth and laughed coldly. "Then let's die together." Chu Li waved his hand to interrupt him. "How about this? I have a suggestion." "What suggestion?" "I will never believe you again." He Jew scoffed. Chu Li said, "I will attack with 3 fingers. If you can block them, I will let you go this time and take your life next time. Not only will I not break my promise, I will also feel better. How about that?" 3 fingers? He Jew frowned. Chu Li said, "If you can block 3 fingers, I will let you go this time." "Fine." He Jew scoffed. He had exchanged blows with Chu Li before. He knew that Chu Li's inner energy was strong and his palm energy was strange, but with his body of Asura, he would definitely be able to block 3 moves. Thinking of this, He Jew took a deep breath. The flesh on his body quickly retracted into his bones, leaving only his skin wrapped around his bones, turning him into a skeleton with a cold and merciless gaze. "TSS." Chu Li pointed with 1 finger. He Jew waved his skinny right palm to meet the attack. The finger force penetrated his palm but was blocked by the palm force. Just as he was feeling happy, he suddenly felt his heart palpitate. The finger force instantly appeared in front of his chest, wanting to break his heart meridian. The weakness of the body of Asura was the heart of Asura, where the heart of Asura was located. It could not withstand a heavy blow, so they would usually make a heart guard mirror. However, this finger force was strange. It could actually travel to the heart after hitting the palm. "Spear finger!" He cried out involuntarily. They hated and feared the Great Lane Temple's lost technique the most. Chu Li nodded. It's the spear finger strike. Can you still take it? Why do you know the spear finger strike? He Ju shouted. This is the secret skill of the Tempest Temple. Chu Li said, you don't have to worry about that. Again. Once again, he pointed his finger lightly. Humph. He Ju sneered. He blocked the finger force with his left palm and covered his chest with his right palm. Since the weakness of the body of Azura was the heart, it was only natural that it had a unique supreme art to protect it. It was to guard against supreme arts such as the spear finger strike, so that it would not suffer a crushing defeat. What he used was the heart protection palm, forming layers of inner strength from the Shura palm, circling around to protect the heart. Puff! A soft muffled sound came from his body. His body instantly froze. Not only his inner energy, but his heartbeat and blood flow had also stopped. He could not move at all. Chu Li took a step forward and pressed his palm on his chest. His inner energy was released. He Ju's vision instantly darkened and he fell unconscious. Chu Li sealed all the acupuncture points on his body, then lifted Zhao Shang and disappeared. Inside the Mercy Temple's Zen temple, the setting sun dyed the small courtyard a rose color. The green bamboo forest rustled. Fa Yuan sat on a cattail hassock in the living room. The door of the living room was wide open. A gentle breeze blew in, ruffling his gray cowl. He sat motionlessly in meditation, looking solemn. There were 4 people lying in front of him. They were Zhou Lingfeng and the others who were captured from the imperial residence of King An. After a quarter of an hour, Fa Yuan suddenly opened his eyes. He slowly walked towards them and sealed their acupuncture points again. Then, he sat back on the cattail hassock and continued to meditate. He looked solemn and motionless. Fa Xiang wore a gray cowl and slowly walked into the small courtyard. Brother Fa Xiang. Fa Yuan opened his eyes and bowed with pressed palms. Fa Xiang looked at the 4 men. Let me do it. You just went through a big battle. You need to rest. I'm fine. Fa Yuan said. They can't be careless. If they really run away, their sins will be endless. I understand. Fa Xiang smiled. Brother Fa Yuan, is almsgiver Chu really targeted by the Divine Church of Azura? Yes. Fa Yuan slowly nodded. Brother Fa Xiang, if almsgiver Chu really wants to cultivate the Azura power technique, it will be very scary. The Divine Church of Azura is nothing special. If the elders in the temple have not made up their minds, they would have been eradicated a long time ago. Brother, I really don't understand. Why can't they make up their minds and let them kill? Fa Yuan raised his eyebrows and said slowly, trying his best to suppress his anger. Fa Xiang sighed. Brother Fa Yuan, you should understand the concerns of the elders. The Divine Church of Azura only has about 100 people, but what about the Tempest Temple? If we completely fall out with them, who knows how many disciples of the Tempest Temple will die in their hands? If the bishop escapes and takes revenge on the disciples of the temple, the other 3 major sects will definitely stand by and watch. If the emperor of the Great Ji dynasty is involved. As he said this, he shook his head. Amit Ba Buddha. Fa Yuan chanted and looked worried. The emperor of the Great Ji dynasty and the Grand Elder were afraid of each other and restrained each other from making a move. If the Grand Elder fought the bishop of the Divine Church of Azura, it would be fine if he won, but if he was injured, the emperor of the Great Ji dynasty would definitely not let go of this opportunity. Fa Xiang sighed. So, Brother Fa Yuan, work hard on your cultivation and enter the enlightened mastery's boundary as soon as possible. When that time comes, the Tempest Temple won't have to be so cautious and indecisive and be called hypocritical. Fa Yuan was recognized as a peerless genius in the temple. At a young age, he had mastered several extremely difficult antique studies and would definitely enter the enlightened mastery's boundary in the future. That was why he was always outside the temple to train his mind and improve his dermic base. Fa Yuan slowly said, "Yes, brother Fa Xiang, I will work hard on my cultivation. However, the path of cultivation should not be short-sighted. It's better to take it one step at a time." Fa Xiang smiled. "Your comprehension is amazing. As long as you do not make a mistake, you will definitely enter the enlightened mastery's boundary." Fa Yuan silently nodded. "Fa Yuan." Chu Li's voice suddenly sounded. He carried 2 men in gray and landed in the courtyard, his white robe fluttering. "Almsgiver Chu." Fa Yuan looked at the 2 men in gray in surprise. Fa Xiang raised his thick eyebrows and bowed with pressed palms. He was slightly dissatisfied with Chu Li. What kind of place did he think the Mercy Temple was? He came and went as he pleased, as if there was no one there. Chu Li threw the 2 men in front of Fa Yuan. These 2 went to a remote village in the public house. They were prepared to destroy 3 villages and put the blame on me, making me a sinner of the High Duke's public house. What wishful thinking! Fa Yuan chanted and stared coldly at the 2 men. "I asked for some information," Chu Li said. "The Divine Church is located at the Moonfall Peak. There are 2 guardians on the left and right. Did you already know?" Fa Yuan showed a bitter expression and slowly shook his head. Chapter 595. P.S. The 23rd Alliance is born, the leader is the Supreme 9 Abyss Heaven. I heard that Moonfall Peak is not far from the Tempest Temple. You can just take care of them. Why do you look so sad?" Chu Li smiled. "Is there some bad news?" Sigh. Fa Yuan sighed and opened his mouth. Fa Xiang stepped forward and said, "Thank you, Almsgiver Chu. How did you get such information? From what I know, they are very tight-lipped. It is almost impossible to get any useful information out of them." Chu Li smiled and pointed at He Ju. He shook his head and sighed. "There are all kinds of people. This one is a coward. He wanted to make a deal with me. I let him go if he provided information. Unfortunately, I did not keep my promise." Fa Xiang smiled. "It is not appropriate to keep your promise with these people. Is there any other news?" "The Divine Church of Azura has 2 left and right guardians. There are a total of 119 people. I think there will not be that many left. Other than that, what do they usually do?" Chu Li sighed and pretended not to read Fa Yuan's thoughts. He shook his head and said, "I was going to keep my promise, but after hearing what they did, I couldn't take it anymore. I had no choice but to break my promise." "Almsgiver Chu, it is rare for you to get this information." Fa Xiang bowed with pressed palms. "I thank you on behalf of the temple. However, Almsgiver Chu, you must be careful. They are eyeing you and want to get their hands on you. I am afraid they will not give up." Chu Li nodded. "That depends on your temple. You will strike like lightning and eradicate them. Bring peace to the world. This time, seal the Azura power technique completely and do not let it spread." Sigh. Fa Yuan finally could not help but shake his head. "Almsgiver Chu, the elders in the temple have their concerns. I am afraid they cannot act immediately." He ignored Fa Xiang's gaze and looked at Chu Li. "So, Almsgiver Chu, you must take care of yourself. Be careful." Chu Li frowned. "Cannot act." Fa Yuan nodded. "If one of them escapes, they will definitely seek revenge. The temple cannot afford to lose them." Chu Li's face darkened. "I see, they really bully the weak and fear the strong. No wonder the Tempest Temple has been passed down for thousands of years. Their ability to calculate the pros and cons and avoid the cons is impressive." Fa Xiang discontentedly said in a deep voice, "Benefactor Chu." Chu Li said, "If it were any other matter, I wouldn't have said a word about it. It's normal to seek good fortune and avoid calamity. It's more important to think about the disciples of the temple. However, this matter was caused by the Tempest Temple. It was you who allowed the divine Church of Azura to emerge, and even grow stronger. Now, you don't dare to make a move. Really? Fa Xiang hurriedly said. Benefactor Chu, please be careful with your words, how could it be caused by us? Chu Li laughed coldly. Don't tell me you don't know how they managed to cultivate the Azura power technique. Fa Xiang said, this is only a mistake. This is your mistake. If you don't do anything, are you going to wait for someone else to make up for it? Chu Li shook his head and sighed. Is this the leader of the 4 major sects? Did they really expect the divine Church of Azura to disappear on their own? How long would it take for them to die of old age after cultivating the Azura power technique to become indestructible? How many innocent people will be killed? Fa Xiang said in a deep voice. This is the decision of our temple's elders. As disciples, we can't speak nonsense. There's nothing we can do. Fa Yuan placed his palms together and chanted the name of Buddha. Benefactor Chu, if it were me, I would have made a move immediately. However, what Brother Fa Xiang said makes sense. Everything must be done according to the temple's orders. Chu Li laughed coldly and said, then the Tempest Temple will tolerate and nurture evil, and wait for the divine Church of Azura to grow stronger? He forced me to go over, but that doesn't mean he won't force others. As time passes, they will become stronger. When that time comes, the Tempest Temple will make a move and suffer even more losses. I don't believe that the Tempest Temple's elders are so ignorant. I will report to the temple's elders about Benefactor Chu's words, Fa Yuan said. Chu Li pointed at the 2 people at his feet and said, do you want these 2? Thank you, Benefactor Chu. Leave it to us. This time, we won't let them escape, Fa Yuan said. Chu Li said, I hope so. Goodbye. After saying that, he did not wait for Fa Yuan to say anything else and flew away. Fa Xiang frowned as he watched him fly away. He shook his head and said, Brother Fa Yuan, you shouldn't have told him this. It will damage our reputation. Benefactor Chu is an extremely intelligent person. He can see it clearly even if we don't say it. Instead of that, it's better to tell him the truth. Fa Yuan shook his head and said, Sigh. This Benefactor Chu is also troublesome. Fa Xiang shook his head and said, among the masters of the younger generation, Fa Yuan should be number 1. Now, Chu Li had the upper hand and his reputation was even greater. This made Fa Xiang a little unhappy. Brother Fa Xiang, the brothers from the Exorcist Academy should be here by now, right? Fa Yuan asked. They will be here today, Fa Xiang said. Fa Yuan said, we can't afford any mistakes this time. I'm worried that people from the Divine Church of Azura will come to snatch them away. We need to be very careful. Yes, I know, Fa Xiang said in a low voice. As the 2 were talking, 6 chants of Buddha came from outside almost at the same time. Fa Xiang smiled. They're here. As soon as he finished speaking, a gray shadow flashed. 6 middle-aged monks floated and landed in front of them. They pressed their palms together and chanted the name of Buddha again. It was like the evening drum and morning bell that resounded throughout the Mercy Temple. The monks in the temple heard it and became quiet. Fa Yuan pressed his palms together and said, the 6 brothers from the Exorcist Academy have worked hard. Let's depart now. Yes, Brother Fa Yuan. The 6 of them pressed their palms together and said. They looked at the 2 people on the ground, then looked at the 4 people in the house. Each of them picked up 1 person and turned to leave. Fa Yuan and Fa Xiang also floated out of the Mercy Temple. They stepped on the treetops and flew away as fast as the wind. The sun was setting and the twilight was gentle. They walked through the twilight without saying a word. Their robes fluttered in the wind. Fa Yuan suddenly said, 6 brothers, it's time. We need to seal their acupuncture points again. The 6 monks nodded and patted their bodies a few times. They sealed their acupuncture points and kept them in a state of unconsciousness. The twilight gradually deepened. Finally, the moon climbed up the sky. As the night deepened, the moon became brighter and brighter. They bathed in the moonlight and walked quietly and solemnly. As time passed, the moon gradually climbed to the middle of the sky. Amitabha Buddha. The 6 monks suddenly chanted the name of Buddha and stopped. 10 people in black stood 100 meters away from them. They stood on the treetops and moved up and down with the treetop. Their cold gazes pierced through 100 meters and landed on them. They could not help but feel cold and uncomfortable. These were gazes that did not contain human emotions. Fa Yuan and Fa Xiang looked at each other and thought to themselves that they had finally arrived. Bam 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 bam. The 6 monks threw the people in their hands to the ground and silently floated towards the 10 people in black. Fa Yuan turned his head and said, "Brother Fa Xiang, let's break their limbs first." Yes. Fa Xiang nodded. The 2 of them floated down the tree and arrived in front of the 6 people. They broke their limbs so that they could not move. This was to prevent them from suddenly waking up and becoming the enemy's power if they were in a stalemate. Fa Yuan used their clothes to tie them together and divided them into 2 piles. He then picked up 3 people in each hand and lightly ran to the side. Fa Xiang hurriedly followed behind. Chapter 596. P.S. The 24th Alliance is born. The leader is the Dragon War Remnant Finger. Even though Fa Yuan was carrying 6 people, his speed was still as fast as the wind. Fa Xiang could barely keep up. The 2 men in black behind him could not catch up and fell further and further behind. The 6 middle-aged monks from the Exorcist Academy were facing 10 men in black and gradually fell into a disadvantageous position. These 10 men in black were skilled in martial arts and were not afraid of death. They attacked with all their might, and each of their attacks was self-destructive, suppressing the 6 monks in gray. The 6 monks did not panic and responded calmly. Seeing Fa Yuan and Fa Xiang escape with the others, they were no longer worried. Their mission this time was to bring the cultivators of the Asura power technique back to the temple. These people were more important than the traders in the temple. Even if they had to sacrifice their lives, they had to let Fa Yuan bring them back. These 10 Asuras had strong martial arts. They could barely hold on with 6 against 10, and they could not even use their secret skills. The secret skills of the Asura power technique were equally strong, so they might not win. They had to hold them back and not let them chase after Junior Fa Yuan. After a while, the 2 men in black turned around and stopped chasing Fa Yuan. They turned around to deal with the 6 monks from the Exorcist Academy. After they joined in, the situation of the 6 monks took a sharp turn for the worse, and they fell into a disadvantageous position. Even though the 12 men in black had the upper hand, they still fought desperately as if they were in a disadvantageous position. They attacked madly without any regard for their own lives. Fa Yuan and Fa Xiang ran like a gust of wind, and when they saw that there was no one behind them, they slowly stopped. Fa Yuan put down the 6 people and turned to look in the direction he came from. "I have to go back and help the seniors from the Exorcist Academy. Senior brother Fa Xiang, take them away first." Fa Xiang nodded. "If you can't win, run." "Yes," Fa Yuan replied and floated away. Fa Xiang glanced at the 6 people on the ground and ran like a gust of wind. When Fa Yuan arrived at the place where the 18 people were fighting, 2 of the 6 monks were already injured, and the other 4 were having a harder time. They were in a precarious situation. "Amitabha," Fa Yuan chanted, and his body flashed with golden light. He looked solemn, and his eyes were merciful. He lightly struck out with his palm, and the sound of Sanskrit lingered, as if it came from the distant sky. He had performed the 1000 Buddha palm. Bang! Fa Yuan hit one of them on the shoulder. His movements were slow, but he could not avoid it. Bang! Bang! His myriad Buddha palm collided with their right palms. The movements of these 3 people immediately became a little sluggish. The circulation of their inner energy was not as smooth. Although the scorching aura coming from the palm print was not strong, it was constantly interfering with the circulation of their inner energy. Bang! Bam! Fa Yuan's palms collided with the two men's right palms again. The inner force of those two people was also a little sluggish. "Be careful of that little monk," someone shouted. The two men in black took a deep breath. Their flesh and blood were absorbed into their bones, turning them into skeletons in an instant. They ran toward Fa Yuan, their eyes glowing red. Their speed was so fast that they were like two gusts of wind. Fa Yuan leisurely struck with his palm again. Bang bang! The two of them welcomed the 1,000 Buddha palms without hesitation. Without waiting for Fa Yuan's second palm strike, they were already close to him. The Shura palm was as fast as a ghost, giving Fa Yuan no time to use the 1,000 Buddha palms. They seemed to know the weakness of the innumerable Buddha palms and knew that it would take some time to prepare for the attack. If the distance was too far, this short moment could be made up for. From the moment the palm struck out to the moment the palm reached out, it was all done. Bystanders would not be able to see this brewing process, but if the distance was extremely close, it would be completely exposed. Fa Yuan simply gave up on the 1,000 Buddha palms. He pressed the spear finger strike, and rays of finger energy surrounded his body. He was on par with the two men in black. The two men in black were 6th-layer Asuras, and they were close to perfecting their 6th layer. Their martial arts were tyrannical. For a moment, Fa Yuan was in a stalemate with them. The other 10 people had an easier time dealing with the 6 monks from the exorcist college. 2 of the monks were already injured, and their movements were sluggish, implicating their companions. Amitba! The 6 monks suddenly clasped their palms together and chanted the name of Buddha. Their bodies began to emit golden light. As the golden light faded, they turned into 6 purple gold men. Their expressions were solemn and holy, and their eyes were filled with compassion. Hiss! The sound of inhaling was heard. The 10 men in black had all turned into skeletons. 8 of them had glowing red eyes, while the remaining 2 were still 5th-layer Asuras. Bang 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 bang! The muffled sounds were incessant, and the style had changed drastically. These 16 people seemed to have turned into barbarians. Every punch landed on flesh, and they only fought with brute force. They did not pay attention to subtlety, and it was a brutal collision of strength against strength. The bodies of the 6 monks flashed with purple-gold light. The sentient menace was activated, and in addition to their secret skills, their bodies were almost indestructible. The 10 Asuras also relied on the body of Asura to recklessly and savagely collide. While fighting, Fa Yuan looked at the 16 people in the field, and he was secretly anxious. The 6 senior brothers from the exorcist college were tyrannical, but the 8 6th-layer Asuras were even more powerful. They could not gain an advantage at all. The level of their sentient menace was not high enough, and they could not compete with the body of Asura. After a cup of tea, the movements of the 6 monks from the exorcist college slowed down. "Senior brothers, let's go," Fa Yuan said in a low voice. The 6 nodded and then shook their heads. They wanted to leave, but they could not. "Junior brother Fa Yuan, you go first. We'll catch up later," a middle-aged monk in a gray robe said. Fa Yuan shook his head. He knew what they were planning. They wanted to perish together with these 10 people, but these Asuras could not be killed. Otherwise, they would become stronger Asuras 18 years later, and even grow into 9th-layer Asuras. "Senior brother Fa Xing," Fa Yuan said, "don't kill them." He frowned. The situation was extremely dangerous, and he was afraid that no one would be able to escape in the end. As he spoke, he shot a petrifying finger at the person opposite him. "Do you need my help, Fa Yuan?" Chu Li suddenly appeared on the top of a tree, and looked over with a smile. His white robe fluttered in the wind. "Almsgiver Chu." Fa Yuan smiled. "Remember that you owe me a big favor." Chu Li smiled. He had already known that the left guardian of the Divine Church of Azura was meticulous in his actions. He would not only think about winning but not about losing. He would definitely have a way to salvage the situation in case of failure. Fa Yuan smiled. I didn't expect Almsgiver Chu to be following us. I was afraid that they would escape. Chu Li scoffed. The heavenly demonic orb fell into his precordium, and infinite power surged in his body. He sank under the tree and shot at the feet of an Azura. With a flash of the sword, the Azura's body suddenly bent and fell from the tree. He landed heavily on the ground. The tendons in his legs had been cut off. Even though he had turned into a skeleton, his tendons were still there. When the Modesty sword slashed across, his tendons were still cut off. Chu Li followed the same pattern and landed at the feet of another opponent of Fa Yuan. With a flash of the sword, he could not avoid it and fell again. Fa Yuan let out a long sigh of relief and bowed with pressed palms. Thank you, Almsgiver Chu. Chu Li said, just remember to repay me once in the future. He appeared behind an Azura again. With a flash of the sword, he stabbed a hand. His figure was faintly discernible. With a flash of the sword, he stabbed at their wrists and cut off their tendons. 10 people and 20 hands were cut off in the blink of an eye. The expressions of Fa Yuan and the 6 exorcists changed slightly. They looked at Chu Li in shock. Chapter 597. P.S. The 25th Alliance is born, the leader is Ai Kongming. Chu Li nodded to the monks. Fa Yuan, there shouldn't be any robberies this time. I won't follow you anymore. Fa Yuan bowed. Thank you, Almsgiver Chu. Chu Li waved his hand and bowed to the crowd. Then, his white robe fluttered and he disappeared under the moonlight in the blink of an eye. Almsgiver Chu's swordsmanship is amazing. A monk in a gray robe sighed. Fa Yuan said, Brother Fa Xing, if it wasn't for Almsgiver Chu's help, it would have been difficult for us to escape. Our deaths are not to be regretted, but if these Azuras manage to escape, they deserve to die. Yes. Thank you, Almsgiver Chu. Fa Yuan smiled. Fa Yuan smiled. There will be a chance. Let's go, Brother Fa Xiang is leading them ahead. Let's go. Fa Xing smiled. They sealed the acupuncture points of the Azuras on the ground and tied them up. Each person carried 2 Azuras and disappeared into the night in the blink of an eye. As Fa Yuan moved, he was very satisfied with his harvest. Another 12 Azuras were captured. In total, there were 18 people. The Divine Church of Azura only had 119 people. The Divine Church of Azura would definitely be furious and think of a way to rescue these people. These Azuras had strange physiques. Even if they were sealed in the Tempest Temple, they could recover if they were rescued. They would be a force to be reckoned with. Fa Yuan hoped that they could infuriate the elders and make them decide to eliminate them as soon as possible. The Azuras killed people every day. This made his state of mind unstable and tormented by guilt. Early in the morning, Chu Li appeared in the courtyard of Crouching Bull Mountain. He slowly waved his long sword and experienced the intricacies of the cloud-slashing sword technique. The cloud-slashing sword technique was indeed unparalleled. No wonder swordsman cloud-slashing could dominate the world with this sword technique. He had a unique advantage. His spirit was strong and the cloud-slashing sword technique was faster. He was probably stronger than swordsman cloud-slashing. At this moment, there was a muffled bang outside. The courtyard door was kicked open. Xia Wei strode in with her slender legs. Chu Li glanced at her and ignored her. He was still immersed in the slow sword technique. Xia Wei was dressed in a pink gown and a pair of deerskin boots. Her cheeks were rosy, and her eyes were as clear as autumn water. Coupled with her graceful figure, she was extremely beautiful. She glared at Chu Li and scoffed, Zhuge Tian. Chu Li practiced his swordsmanship and said slowly, Junior Sister Xia, what can I do for you? What did you say to my father? Xia Wei snorted. Chu Li replied coldly, Do I need to report to you what I said to Elder Xia? May I know your position? Could it be Mountain Chieftain? You. Xia Wei glared at him. Chu Li did not even look at her as he continued to practice his swordsmanship leisurely. Junior Xia. Zhou Hang and Chu Daji ran in. When he saw Xia Wei glaring at Chu Li angrily, he secretly lamented that he was too late. He quickly said, Young lord, please don't be offended. Junior sister Xia is a little hot-tempered. Chu Li glanced at the two of them. Instead of cultivating, you two still have the leisure to pursue women? We are not. Zhou Hang quickly waved his hand. We are innocent with junior sister Xia. We have no intention of pursuing her. Chu Li nodded. That's true. Who would dare to pursue a woman like her? Zhuge Tian, what are you talking about? Xia Wei shouted. Chu Li waved his long sword and said leisurely, Turn a deaf ear, turn a blind eye. If that's the case, why are you still here? Those who should be cultivating, those who should be doing embroidery, go on, go on. Zhuge Tian, you bastard! Xia Wei shouted angrily. Who's doing embroidery? Chu Li continued to practice his swordsmanship slowly. As a woman, what else can you do other than embroidery? Women can only embroider. Xia Wei laughed coldly. Who said that? Can't I practice martial arts? Chu Li said, Your aptitude is average. It's better if you don't cultivate. Nonsense. Xia Wei shouted. My aptitude is very good. Chu Li shook his head and said nothing more. Xia Wei gritted her teeth and stared at him hatefully. Zhuge Tian, are you looking down on me? Chu Li calmly spat out a word. Yes. You. Xia Wei pointed at Chu Li with her slender finger. She was so angry that her breasts were rising and falling. Her face was flushed red, making her look even more beautiful. Chu Li still did not look at her. He stared at the tip of the sword and moved with it. Zhou Hang and Chu Daji secretly thought that it was a waste of resources. Zhuge Tian did not even look at such a beauty in front of him. He only stared at the sword. Was this obsession and focus on martial arts the reason why he was so powerful? Xia Wei gritted her teeth and stared at him. Chu Li did not look at her. Xia Wei was not happy and kept staring at him. Chu Li's gaze followed the sword and said slowly, Why aren't you leaving? I'm not leaving. What did you say to my father? Xia Wei said angrily. Chu Li did not say anything. Xia Wei said, Why does my father want me to treat you well? Chu Li chuckled. Looks like Elder Xia wants to marry you to me. Dream on. Xia Wei gritted her teeth and stared at him. Stop your wishful thinking. Chu Li said, Consider it my wishful thinking. You. Xia Wei was shocked. Chu Li looked away from the tip of the sword and glanced at her. You're a beauty after all. You'd be good to warm my bed. As long as you don't have a bad temper, you'll be useful. Zhuge Tian, you bastard! Xia Wei shouted. Chu Li said, It's fine if you have a bad temper. I'll just help you change it. I won't agree even if I die. Xia Wei laughed coldly. Chu Li's gaze wandered around her full chest and laughed. So what if you don't agree? As long as Elder Xia agrees. Even if you die, don't even think about touching me. Dream on. Xia Wei gritted her teeth and said hatefully. She felt like there were ants crawling on her chest when Chu Li looked at her. Goosebumps appeared all over her body and she shivered. If she was with someone like him, she would rather die. Chu Li said, Then stay away from me. If you come here again, don't blame me for being rude. I won't be sending you off. Have a safe trip. Zhuge Tian, just you wait. Xia Wei stomped her feet and turned to leave. Chu Li did not look at her and continued to focus on his sword practice. Zhou Hang and Chu Daji laughed awkwardly. They scratched their heads and followed him out. Stupid pig! Stupid pig! Stupid pig! When they arrived at the forest where Xia Wei was practicing, they saw her chopping trees with her sword. They looked at each other helplessly. Zhou Heng approached her and asked gently, afraid that he would agitate her, "Junior sister Xia, what did elder Xia say?" "Humph, I don't care what he says. I won't listen." Xia Wei waved her sword and scoffed. Chu Daji said, "Don't tell me he's trying to mess with you and the young lord?" Xia Wei turned to glare at him. Chu Daji's eyes widened. "No way. Did I get it right?" Zhou Heng said, "Looks like Elder Xia thinks highly of the young lord. Sigh, I wonder what Murong Liang will think when he hears about this." He could guess that Murong Liang would be furious when he hears about this. He would want to fight Zhuge Tian, but unfortunately, he would not be able to defeat Zhuge Tian. Xia Wei said, "My father is really old and confused. He can't see what kind of person he is." "Elder Xia has better foresight than we do," Zhou Heng said. Xia Wei squinted her eyes. "Senior brother Zhou, whose side are you on?" Zhou Heng chuckled. "All right, I won't say anything. Junior brother Lin, don't let Murong Liang know about this." Chapter 598. P.S. The 26th Alliance is born. The Alliance leader is Reign of Deep Night. P.S. The 6th update is over. Chu Li saw what Xia Wei said in his mind and shook his head. Elder Xia seemed to think highly of him and pushed his daughter to him. Unfortunately, Xia Wei hated him so much that it saved him a lot of trouble. Although Xia Wei was beautiful, she was not as beautiful as Xiao Shi and Xiao Qi. The key was not her beauty, but he did not want to complicate things. If there was a relationship, it would not be beneficial for him. He had a plan to become the leader of Crouching Bull Mountain. Zhuge Feng was a big obstacle, but time was also a big flaw. He did not know how to split himself, and for the past few days, he had been alternating between King An's imperial residence and here. If there was another woman beside him, she would definitely notice something was wrong. Qiao San was sent down the mountain to do things so that he would not be found out. In order to avoid trouble, he couldn't get close to Xia Wei and couldn't get involved. He watched as Xia Wei sent Zhou Heng and Chu Daji away and went to the training field in the forest to continue training. Xia Wei was very hard-working, far more than Zhou Heng, Chu Daji, or even Murong Liang. Unfortunately, she was limited by her talent and could not improve quickly enough. It would be difficult for her to become a grandmaster. The world was unfair. She was very hard-working and spent many times more time than others, but her martial arts was not as good as theirs. The fact that Xia Wei was able to resist such disappointment and helplessness and persevere in her efforts showed that her willpower was not something that an ordinary woman could compare to. Chu Li admired her efforts, but because of that, he could not have anything to do with her. He slowly sheathed his long sword. After that, a maid came in with water. Chu Li washed his face and walked up the mountain. As he left the courtyard, he bumped into Zhou Heng and Chu Daji. The two closed fists saluted. Chu Li said, "If you have nothing to do, follow me up the mountain." "Young master wants to train up the mountain?" Chu Daji asked curiously. Chu Li said, "To the Library of Martial Arts." "Young master still wants to go to the Library of Martial Arts?" Chu Daji was surprised. "There are some low-level secret manuals there." "Young master, you are already a grandmaster, you don't need to read those." Chu Li said, "My foundation is not strong enough, I want to read them again." "Young master is really diligent," Chu Daji exclaimed. Chu Li glared at him. "You need to practice your flattery skills." Chu Daji scratched his head, and Zhou Heng burst out laughing. Chu Daji and Zhou Heng were beside him as they walked up together. A narrow path led to the top of the mountain. After walking for about 200 meters, the path suddenly opened up, and a valley came into view. In the valley, there were pavilions and pavilions connected one after another, bustling with activity. These pavilions were completely different from the buildings halfway up the mountain. The buildings halfway up the mountain were simple and even a little shabby, but the pavilions and pavilions in this valley were full of vitality. The atmosphere was completely different, and people couldn't help but feel refreshed. Chu smiled. It's quite lively here. Chu Daji said. Everyone can't go down the mountain, so we have to find a way to make it more lively. If we always stay in the valley to practice, we won't have any leisure time. Our minds will be exhausted, and it's not good for practice. Chu nodded. That makes sense. Chu Daji chuckled. This is what Elder Morong said. He encourages people to set up shops in the mountain, such as grocery stores, jewelry shops, pastry shops, restaurants, and tea houses. There are all of them in the valley. Chu smiled. It's really lively. These shops are all on the same street. Chu Daji smiled. Everyone will walk along this street after they finish their practice. It's really fun. Chu said, let's go and take a look. Chu Daji said excitedly, young master will definitely like it. There were 4 guards at the side of the valley. When they saw them, they closed fists saluted and did not stop them. The 3 of them entered the valley, and their surroundings warmed up. It was warm here, and the mountain walls were covered with fresh flowers and green vines. It was full of life. The valley was like a town, with rows of courtyards built to form 6 streets. 6 streets, and the central road from east to west was especially spacious. Flags fluttered on both sides of the street. There were restaurants, tea houses, and even chess and shooting towers. There were all kinds of things, and it was really bustling like a small town. The 3 of them passed through the central street, and Chu could not help but admire it. It took a lot of effort to build these shops, and the atmosphere of life was rich. People who lived here did not live like monks, but rather, they lived like they did at the foot of the mountain. After passing through the main street, they finally arrived in front of a stone building. The stone building had a total of 3 floors, and it was built near the river. This river flowed out from the pool under the mountain wall, through the valley, and flowed to the foot of the mountain. The water was so clear that one could see the bottom, and one could not help but want to take a sip. This stone building with 3 floors was the Library of Martial Arts. Chu followed the 2 into the building, and it was very lively inside. Many people were either squatting or standing reading books. Chu showed his waist tag to the guards, and went straight to the 3rd floor. There were not many secret books on the 3rd floor, and there was only 1 bookshelf. The other 10 bookshelves were filled with cultivation note. Every cultivation note was written by a famous disciple of the Crouching Bull Mountain. To others, it was useless, but to the disciples of the Crouching Bull Mountain, it was very precious. Chu only stood in front of the bookshelf, and flipped through the secret books one by one. There were 2 types of secret books in the Crouching Bull Mountain. One was the secret books of the Crouching Bull Mountain, and the other was the secret books that the Crouching Bull Mountain obtained from other places. Most of them were left behind by some small factions that had been destroyed. Chu could guess how these secret books were obtained, and it must be bloody. The secret books of the Crouching Bull Mountain only had the first 3 levels, and the secret books of the other factions were usually complete, and could be read in one go. It was only used as a reference, and very few people actually cultivated it. To cultivate an antique study, it was not enough to just have the power of the antique study, one must also master it. No matter how powerful the antique study was, it was useless if one could not master it. Therefore, all the disciples cultivated the secret books of the Crouching Bull Mountain. The notes of those notes could help them not to take the wrong path during cultivation, and they could master it at the fastest speed. As for the secret books of the other factions, their power was not even comparable to that of the Crouching Bull Mountain. Even if it was a powerful antique study of the same power, the antique study of the Crouching Bull Mountain might only take a year to cultivate, while the antique study of the other factions would take 10 years or even longer. Moreover, the martial arts secret books of the factions that were destroyed by the Crouching Bull Mountain were not that great in their eyes, or else they would not have been destroyed by the Crouching Bull Mountain. Chu did not care about all this, and only flipped through the books one by one, and then imprinted them in his mind. He would slowly flip through them when he had time. He was now integrating the Clad slashing sword technique into the 7 forms of godly sword, and he needed a deeper understanding of martial arts. The martial library was very important to him. Zhou Hang and Chu Daji each found a book of cultivation notes to read. Seeing that Chu Li was flipping through the books quickly, they did not care, but they did not interrupt and quickly immerse themselves in their own cultivation note. When they felt hungry and wanted to eat lunch, they saw that Chu Li had already put the last secret book back. "Young master, let's find a restaurant to eat." Chu Daji walked over and smiled. Chu Li nodded and put the secret book back on the shelf. Zhou Heng said, "Young master, you read the secret books so quickly?" "Find what I want to read," Chu Li said. "Most of them are useless." Chu Daji asked curiously, "What do you want to read, young master?" "It's about swordsmanship," Chu Li said. "There aren't many sword manuals." "Yes, there aren't many sword manuals," Zhou Heng said. "But every one of them is an extremely powerful swordsmanship." Chu Li smiled. Chapter 599. P.S. The 27th Guild Master is Xianyuan Zi. P.S. Usually, my computer is not connected to the internet, so I can concentrate on writing. When I'm tired, I will use the writer's assistant on my phone to reply to the book reviews. However, the writer's assistant cannot manage the book reviews. Sometimes, I might not be able to add the best parts in time. Please understand. Young master, what is the most powerful sword technique here? Chu Daji asked curiously. Chu Li said, "The Sword of Understanding." Sword of Understanding. Chu Daji thought for a moment before shaking his head. He had never heard of it before. He looked at Zhou Heng. Zhou Heng shook his head and smiled bitterly. Chu Li said, "The Sword of Understanding. This one." He took out a secret book and handed it to the two of them. The two of them looked at the cover. The words, "Sword of Understanding," were written neatly. It did not look like a sword manual, and there was no murderous intent on it. However, this secret manual was exceptionally thick. It should be the thickest secret manual on this shelf. It did not look like a sword. "Is this one sword?" Chu Daji laughed. "I think it's more than 100 swords." Usually, sword manuals were 1 page per move. How many moves were there in a sword technique could be roughly guessed by looking at the thickness of the sword manual. Whether it was complicated or simple, one could tell with a glance at the thickness of the sword manual. This Sword of Understanding was definitely from another sect's sword manual. When the disciples of the Crouching Bull Mountain read the secret manuals of other sects, they only flipped through them with the intention of referencing them. They would not really put in the effort to cultivate them, as the gains would not make up for the losses. If he had the time, he might as well practice the Crouching Bull Mountain's magnum opus. His cultivation would be smooth and powerful. Even if they tried to cultivate the foreign sect's secret manuals, they would usually cultivate the simpler ones. Simple yet powerful, that was their goal. Hearing the name of the Sword of Understanding, it was likely that many disciples would go and cultivate it. However, after seeing the thickness of this sword manual, it was likely that no one would really want to practice it. They could not afford to waste their time, as it was enough for them to practice 2 of the Crouching Bull Mountain's antique studies. "Is this a sword?" Zhou Heng asked curiously. "So thick?" Chu Li said, "There are 108 styles, and you'll have to combine them into one. Only then can you be considered to have mastered it." "Oh my, this is too difficult." Chu Daji shook his head. 108 swords. No one will practice this kind of sword technique. "Young master, is this sword technique really that powerful?" Zhou Heng asked curiously. Chu Li nodded. "It's better than the Crouching Bull Mountain's sword technique." "Then let's try it out." Zhou Heng smiled. Chu Daji said, "Is he that powerful?" Chu Li nodded. As long as I can master it, its power will definitely surpass the sword technique of Crouching Bull Mountain. Haha, then let's practice, Chudaji said excitedly. He could imagine that after he mastered it, he would surpass his peers and receive the admiration of his peers. Zhou Heng flipped through it and frowned. Chudaji snatched it over and said, "Let me see." Zhou Heng glared at him and turned to look at Chu Li. "Young master, this sword technique is too complicated." Chu Li nodded. "Start with the most complicated parts and cultivate to the most simple." Sigh. Zhou Heng sighed. "I'm afraid I can't learn it." Chudaji's brows furrowed even tighter. Chu Li glanced at the two of them and smiled. "This sword technique isn't meant to be practiced by just anyone. Both of you take a look at it twice. If you can remember the sword form, you can practice it. If you can't, then forget it." 108 forms did not sound like much, but each form was extremely complicated. It could be evolved into 324 forms, or 648 forms. Then, it could be slowly compressed. 2 forms into 1 form, 4 forms into 1 form, and finally, the final form. This sword technique wanted to include all the sword forms in the world within it. It was ambitious. However, this sword technique was only suitable for people with photographic memory. Without photographic memory, it would be a waste of time and effort. It would be difficult to memorize so many sword forms, let alone using them against an enemy. Chudaji flipped through it twice and tried his best to memorize it. After flipping through it once, he vaguely remembered more than 10 forms. However, after flipping through it the second time, there were only about 10 forms left. His mind was in a mess. He passed the secret manual to Zhou Heng. "Brother Zhou, take a look." He rubbed his forehead and shook it hard. His eyes were still in a daze. Chu Li shook his head. This sword technique was not suitable for him. After flipping through it twice, Zhou Heng was also in a daze. He only remembered 10 forms. He had no choice but to return the secret manual to Chu Li. He said helplessly, "No wonder no one cultivated it. It's impossible." Chu Li said, "Let's go eat." Chudaji said, "Young master, have you memorized it?" Chu Li nodded. "Yes, most likely." "You can really remember it?" Chudaji widened his eyes in disbelief. His face was like a pancake and his eyes were small. When he widened his eyes, it looked extremely comical. Chu Li said calmly, "Why would I lie to you? This is too shocking." Chudaji shook his head. "I don't believe it." "It's up to you whether you believe it or not," Chu Li said. Zhou Heng laughed. "It's hard to believe, but since young master said it, it must be true." "Brother Chu, what nonsense are you talking about?" Chudaji said, "I don't believe it. How can anyone memorize it so quickly?" Chu Li glared at him. "Frog in a well." "Young master, if you really memorize it, I'll listen to you in the future," Chudaji said. Chu Li said indifferently, "If I can't memorize it, you won't listen to me?" Chudaji grinned. Zhou Heng said, "Young master, don't listen to his nonsense." Chudaji scoffed. "I'm not talking nonsense." Chu Li nodded. "If that's the case, then practice at once." "Really?" Chudaji was surprised. He originally thought that with young master's arrogant personality, he would not care about him. Chu Li said, "I'll let you know how high the sky is. Don't think that you're very powerful." "Alright, let's see." Zhou Heng laughed. They brought the sword manual to a moon-shaped door. After passing through it, they arrived at a martial arts hall. Half of the martial arts library was a library for the secret manuals, and the other half was a martial arts hall. They could read and practice at the same time, which was very convenient. The martial arts hall was about 200 square meters, and it was covered with red mud. It was hard with a hint of softness, and it was very comfortable to walk on. Weapons were displayed on the walls. Other than swords and knives, there were also all kinds of strange weapons. There was no one in the hall. After the three of them entered, Chu Li began to practice the 108 sword technique. Zhou Hang and Chu Daji stared at him without blinking, afraid that they could not see clearly. After practicing, Chu Li sheathed his sword and glanced at him. "How is it?" "Not a single bit off," Zhou Hang praised. Chu Daji quickly asked, "Young master, how did you do it?" "It's not difficult to have a photographic memory," Chu Li said. "If I can do it, then I can do it. If I can't, then I can't. It's just like how tall you are and how big your eyes are. It's all natural." When Zhou Hang heard Chu Li's words, he almost laughed out loud. Chu Daji hated it when people mentioned his eyes. His face was too big, and his eyes were too small, which made him feel ashamed. Chu Daji knew that young master must be taking this opportunity to take revenge. He could only grit his teeth and bear with it. "Young master, if you have any orders in the future, I will listen to them." "No orders?" Chu Li said. "Yes." Chu Daji nodded. Chu Li nodded. "That's good. Let's go." Relying on martial arts alone was not enough. He needed a stronger ability to make them feel inferior. Only then would there be no jealousy, only admiration. Only then would he be able to completely subdue them. This was the first step he took. Chapter 600. The welcome hall was filled with tables and people. It was even livelier than downstairs. The guests were of different ages. Some were young, some were middle-aged, and some were old. There were also many children. It was no different from the town outside. As Chu Li and the other two walked in, people greeted them from time to time. However, these people did not recognize Chu Li. It was as if they had never seen Zhuge Tian before. They only greeted Zhou Hang and Chu Daji. Zhou Hang and Chu Daji kept waving, nodding, and greeting each other. They brought Chu Li to the second floor. Chu Li knew that they had never seen Zhuge Tian before. It seemed like Zhuge Tian did not show his face and only focused on his cultivation. The second floor was also quite lively. Most of the people sitting there were young disciples of both genders. Brother Zhou, Brother Lin. Everyone greeted them. Zhou Hang smiled and nodded. Chu Daji kept a straight face and did not smile. "Young master, sit over there." Chu Daji pointed at an empty table in front of the window. Zhou Hang hesitated and nodded. Chu Li pretended not to know anything and walked over. All the tables around the window were taken. Only the table closest to the window was empty. It was obvious that it was purposely left there. After a moment of silence, the surrounding people returned to normal. However, they began to whisper among themselves. They thought that there would be a commotion soon and glanced at the three of them from time to time. Chu Li sat down and looked out the window. He could clearly see everyone downstairs. When he looked up, he could also see the beautiful scenery of the valley. The flowers were like a brocade and the green vines were lush. It was indeed a great seat. "Whose seat is this?" Chu Li asked. Chu Daji scoffed. "It's Duan Wuya's." "Young master, you haven't heard of him, right?" He was now completely convinced by Chu Li. He was born to be superior to others. Not only was his martial arts strong, but he was also talented. He was destined to be a dragon among men. If he listened to Chu Li's orders obediently, his position might even be higher than Elder Murong's when the young master became the hill master. With this thought in mind, he started to do his best and truly saw Chu Li as the young master. Chu Li shook his head. "Duan Wuya, he must be a powerful person." Zhou Hang smiled. Chu Daji said, "He is as famous as Brother Zhou." As the three of them talked, people came to greet Zhou Hang. Zhou Hang calmly cupped his fists, looking rather dignified. Chu Li smiled as he looked at Zhou Hang. He did not expect Zhou Hang to be such a leader. It could be seen that everyone respected him very much. As for Chu Daji, he was a level lower. Incidentally, he himself was almost ignored and didn't even recognize him. "Young lord, even if you have a photographic memory, remembering so many sword styles is too difficult." Chu Daji took the teapot from the waiter and personally brewed 3 cups of tea before personally serving it to Chu Li. Chu Li took the teacup. It's just like how you can eat 20 steamed buns. It's too difficult for others, but you take it for granted. You don't think it's difficult at all. That's how it feels. Zhou Heng could not help but laugh. Chu Daji was the famous glutton of the Crouching Bull Mountain. He had a great appetite and ate the most. Others could only look at him in the dust and could not compare to him. Chu Daji said embarrassingly, "Young master, let's not talk about this." Chu Li said, "You think it's very difficult, but I think it's very easy. Talent is something that's hard to explain clearly. It depends on one's ability to reincarnate." Zhou Heng's smile widened. As the 3 of them chatted and laughed, the people around them suddenly became quiet. Chu Li did not look over there. He lowered his head and looked at the scenery outside. The omniscient mirror saw 3 young men slowly walking up to the 2nd floor. They glanced around and walked towards him. Other than the one in front, the other 2 had a gloomy expression on their faces. Their eyes were burning with anger. The young man in front was handsome and had a strong body. He exuded a masculine beauty. One of the 2 young men beside him was rustic while the other was ugly. It formed an extreme contrast, but it was very attractive. Zhou Heng said in a low voice, "Young lord, I'm afraid there will be a war of words later." Chu Li said, "It's fine. I'll just watch." Zhou Heng smiled bitterly. "Chu Daji, how dare you?" The rustic young man shouted, "This is Brother Duan's table. How dare you occupy it?" Chu Daji glanced at him and scoffed arrogantly, "Li Weiran, who said that this is Brother Duan's table? Is there a name on it? Does this restaurant belong to you guys? The table belongs to everyone. Come early, sit early. How can you say that it belongs to Brother Duan?" Duan Wuya furrowed his brows and glanced at Chu Daji, then at Zhou Heng. Zhou Heng looked at him coldly. Li Weiran said loudly, "Everyone here knows that this is Brother Duan's table. Why are you talking nonsense? Hurry up and give up the table. Brother Duan wants to eat." "How come I didn't know that this was Brother Duan's table?" Chu Daji scoffed. "We want to eat too. If you want to eat, then wait. You can sit here after we finish eating." "Bulsh *t. Li Weiran shouted. "Chu Daji, don't go too far. Haha, we saw an empty table and sat down to eat. Isn't this going too far?" Chu Daji looked surprised. "Are you saying that we were the first to arrive, so we have to give up our table? What kind of logic is this? I think you are the one who is going too far. Chu Daji, you must be tired of living," Li Weiran shouted. Chu Daji said, "Brother Duan is too overbearing. Do you want to kill me just for occupying a table? Alright, since he came first, let him sit. We'll find another table." Duan Wu Yu waved his hand and calmly said, "It's not worth it to quarrel over a table. Brother Duan is open-minded, but some people are taking advantage of this. They know that Brother Duan won't mind." "How shameless!" Li Weiran scoffed. Chu Daji said with disdain, "We are the ones in the right. You make it sound like we are the ones in the wrong. We saw an empty table, so why can't we sit down? Could it be that I can only watch as an empty seat squeezes into another table? Li, you're too overbearing, aren't you? We're all disciples of Crouching Bull Mountain. Why are you able to occupy the best seats while we can only watch obediently and not dare to sit in the empty seats? Humph, you are not the leader yet." "You!" Li Weiran was furious. He was so angry that he wanted to hit him. Duan Wuya waved his hand and said, "Stop it. Just find a place to eat." "Yes, Brother Duan." Li Weiran nodded helplessly and glared at Chu Daji. Chu Daji scoffed in disdain. The 3 of them sat at a table not far away. They were still staring at Chu Li and the others. Duan Wuya looked at Chu Li thoughtfully. He could tell that Chu Li was the leader among the 3 of them. Chu Daji served tea to Chu Li first, then to Zhou Heng. In the past, only Murong Liang, the son of Elder Murong, could enjoy such flattery. It seemed that this guy's status was not ordinary. Chapter 601. Chu Li put down his teacup and said, "Does Duan Wuya have a good reputation among the disciples?" Zhou Heng nodded. "He's the leader of the commoner disciples." Commoner disciples. Chu Li was deep in thought. Chu Daji said, "There are two types of disciples in Crouching Bull Mountain. One is the disciples that are recruited from the lower part of the mountain, and the other is the descendants of the disciples of Crouching Bull Mountain." Chu Li was deep in thought. The disciples from the two factions don't get along? Not really, Chu Daji said. But there are always some differences. They can't play together. Everyone plays on their own and slowly they have their own leaders. We have Murong on our side and Duan Wuya on their side. Murong Liang? Chu Li laughed and nodded. That's true. He's Elder Murong's son after all. Chu Daji smiled and said, "Everyone respects senior brother Zhou. Murong was only pushed out because of Elder Murong's son. If you want to say who everyone respects the most, it's still senior brother Zhou." Zhou Heng waved his hand and smiled. "Don't talk about me. I don't have that much reputation. Brother Zhou, you're too polite," Chu Daji said. "Everyone understands." Zhou Heng said, "I really didn't do anything." "It's because you don't do anything that everyone likes you." Chu Daji said, "You're fair and you're not arrogant. Plus, your father is an elder, so everyone listens to you." Zhou Heng smiled. "The last one is the most important one." "Interesting." Chu Li slowly nodded. "Then who's better in martial arts?" Zhou Heng said, "I'm about the same as Duan Wuya." Chu Daji scoffed. "I think Duan Wuya is annoying. He's arrogant and disrespectful." "Zhou Heng, you're not as good as him." Chu Li turned to look at Duan Wuya and said, "He's a grandmaster." "Ah?" Chu Daji was stunned. Zhou Heng frowned. "It can't be?" Chu Li said, "He probably went through isolated cultivation. Don't you guys know? After achieving innate mastery, everyone has to go through isolated cultivation once a year," Zhou Heng said. Chu Li said, "Duan Wuya is about the same as Murong Liang. They both hide their cultivation level." Zhou Heng's face darkened. He had always thought that he was on par with Duan Wuya, but it was all an illusion. He was actually one step behind Duan Wuya. Chu Daji was surprised. "Is it really a grandmaster?" Chu Li glanced at him and said nothing. Chu Daji scratched his head in embarrassment. "This guy is also a talent." Chu Li said, "That's why you're lagging behind. Focus and work hard." "Yes," the two of them replied in a low voice. The atmosphere immediately became gloomy. The two of them were not in the mood to talk. "Have you heard? Another senior brother has been killed." Chu Li raised his eyebrows when he heard this. He looked at Duan Wuya. It was Li Weiran, who had been arguing with Chu Daji. Li Weiran said in a low voice, "What happened this morning is still being suppressed within the sect. How did another senior brother get killed?" The ugly man frowned and said, "The elders in the sect don't even think of a solution. They are always being ambushed like this. When will there be a solution? We are the Crouching Bull Mountain." Li Weiran lowered his voice. "Lower your voice, senior brother Huang. It's not that the elders don't think of a solution. It's just that those people are too cunning. They can't find them. I don't believe that we, the Crouching Bull Mountain, can't defeat them. If they really had that kind of strength, they wouldn't need to be sneaky and sneaky." Huang Tao sneered. "Senior brother Huang." Li Weiran shook his head. "Are the elders useless? The opponents are too strong." Huang Tao scoffed and turned to look at Duan Wuya. "Senior brother Duan, do you think they are very strong?" Duan Wuya said, "They are very strong." "Then why are they sneaky?" "They are deliberately mystifying to hide their weakness." Huang Tao said disapprovingly. "The elders are not to be trifled with," Duan Wuya said, Every time the disciples leave the mountain, the elders are responsible for protecting them secretly. However, they can't protect them. It's obvious that they have a grandmaster. They have a grandmaster, but we have more. Huang Tao scoffed. Duan Wuya shook his head. We can't mobilize all of our grandmasters. We still have to protect the sect. I think they have more than one grandmaster. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to hold back the elders who are secretly protecting them. We can't find them now. Huang Tao angrily scratched his head. If we find their lair, we will destroy them. Yes, we will. Li Weiran scoffed. Duan Wuya lightly shook his head and remained silent. Chu Li glanced at the disciples around him. They were still in high spirit. It was obvious that they did not know about this. Bang! A muffled sound was heard. A tall young disciple slammed the table and shouted, "What? Senior Gu is dead?" The young man opposite him had a sad look on his face. He slowly nodded. Senior Gu has such a high level of martial arts. How could he be killed? The young disciple shouted. The disciple opposite him sighed. I think he died in the hands of a grandmaster. Ah! The tall young man screamed at the sky. His face was full of sadness. On the day he left, he drank with Senior Gu. Senior Gu even told him to train hard so that he could leave the mountain with him in the future. Now that he was separated from him, he could not accept it. The surroundings became quiet. Senior Shen, Senior Gu is indeed dead. Li Weiran nodded. But we will definitely avenge him. Yes, we must avenge him. Everyone shouted at the same time. Their faces were full of hatred. Huang Tao was dissatisfied. In my opinion, we shouldn't have sealed the mountain. That's why people dare to bully us. If we didn't seal the mountain, who would dare to do it? Everyone became silent. Huang Tao continued, if this happened in the past, everyone would be afraid to rush to avenge Senior Gu. But now, they know that we're sealed in the mountain and can't go down. That's why they're killing people recklessly. Junior Huang! Duan Wuya shouted. Huang Tao ignored him and shouted, the elders are old and confused. They're getting more and more timid. If this goes on, the reputation of the Crouching Bull Mountain will be ruined. Chu Daji was annoyed. Junior Huang, what are you doing? I'm going to tell the elders to remove the seal. Huang Tao shouted. Yes, remove the seal. Many of the people agreed. They were all hot-blooded and high-spirited people. If they were to be imprisoned on the mountain, it would be no different from being imprisoned. They had been restless for a long time. Now that they were encouraged by Huang Tao, their blood was boiling. Zhou Heng stood up and said loudly, Senior and junior brothers, this order to seal the mountain was given by the Hill Master himself. It has nothing to do with the elders. What the Hill Master sees is different from what we see. It's like standing at the foot of the mountain and standing at the top. If there was no special reason, the Hill Master would not have given this order. Humph, I don't think it's right to seal the mountain, Huang Tao said. Even if we're facing a strong enemy, we can't just hide like this. We should fight. What if we can't win? Zhou Heng scoffed. Huang Tao said, we have to fight even if we can't win. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.